Okay. Namaste. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Yoga Moves MS Holistic Health and Wellness Forum. Yay! Thank you to everyone who is here in person, and thank you to everyone who's online virtually. We're so excited to connect together, really, from around the world. So we're thrilled to have you here, whether you're in person or virtually. This is going to be a time of learning, connection, empowerment, and healing. At Yoga Moves MS, our mission is to support those living with multiple sclerosis and similar conditions through accessible movement, community support, and comprehensive wellness. This forum brings together medical professionals, advocates, and people with expertise to explore the whole person holistically, mind, body, and soul. Each speaker today brings a different lens, clinical knowledge, experience, and wisdom. They are all here for one reason: to support you. Whether you're newly diagnosed, have lived with MS for years, or a caregiver or an ally, this forum is about building tools and community to navigate MS in all its complexity. So take a deep breath. Let's do it together. Take an inhale through the nose and exhale and let it go. Yep, feel yourself in your seats. Get grounded, settle in, get comfortable, and allow yourself to receive everything this day has to offer. And now it is my pleasure and honor to introduce to you Dr. Martin Belkin. Come on up. You're getting a huge applause. Dr. Belkin is on our board of directors for Yoga Moves MS. We are so fortunate to have him. He also leads the Michigan Institute of Neurological Disorders, the MS Center. He's quite a leader in our community, and we're so fortunate to have him.
Great. Thanks, Mindy. And thanks, everyone, for coming. I want to welcome everyone to this Holistic Health and Wellness seminar. This is really such a unique forum. You don't get too many opportunities where someone with Mindy and her team can organize a set of lectures that really focus on wellness. There's plenty of talks, plenty of information out there in terms of treatments for MS, talking about pharmaceuticals, medications, which is critically important and something that's essential. And, the research and everything that's come along has been tremendous. But there's so much more to treatment of patients with MS. And, that includes everything wellness, whether it's talking about diet, exercise, therapy, and then talking about yoga. And yoga is so critically important for those who do yoga. The fact that it helps with mindfulness, helps with flexibility, helps with strength, helps with muscle tone. And so really just improves the quality of life with patients with MS. So initially, we're going to start with a patient video so you can hear their stories and what Yoga Moves MS has done for them.
Yoga Moves MS has somehow triggered something in me to care for myself even better.
I remember when I first started, I remember asking Mindy and the other classmates, how often do I have to do this yoga stuff? And one of the classmates said, every day.
Meeting once a week and having something to look forward to that's fun and accepting and energetic and compassionate. I look forward to it every week. This is like being on a team and going and seeing friends once a week.
The days that am practicing yoga, that evening, it carries through to the afternoon, to the evening, and to night, to sleep. I'm amazed at how everybody is understanding of each other. It's like meeting a group of friends.
Being in a place where we're not judging each other is fantastic, but I've had to actually come and learn through this class how to not judge myself.
I fell down the stairs, about 15 stairs, hitting my tailbone on each one when I was 11. That really mixed up everything as far as the lower body. Dancing, even though many times it was painful, kept me going. As long as you kept moving and kept going, it was fine.
I take it one step at a time. To come to yoga, Mindy and the rest of the group has taught me how to do things of that nature and just how to be very mindful.
It's another assistance, another guidance, another way to see the light again and not fall back into darkness. It's a jovial class.
Their strength, their determination, their wanting to help themselves, to feel better, that's what you find in a Yoga Moves student. You can see the light in our students' eyes, and you can feel it when you're around them.
You see other people struggling and getting ahead or gaining things they have lost, which is a miracle.
Seeing other success stories. We saw success stories today in class, and it was fantastic. And we see them every week. And even just today now, able to stand here in class, I surprised myself, and it was almost emotional knowing that my legs were underneath me. I'm not taking steps, but I'm able to actually stand, which I was unable to do 6 months ago.
Yoga has also helped me to live a stress-free life. I try to laugh as much as possible. I try to go as much as possible. I try to do as much as possible.
What is different about these classes is that they do take more resources to bring this class to the community. We have multiple teachers in a small group setting. And I'm so grateful for all that have been able to support the classes, our sponsors, our donors, our volunteers.
We are so grateful. And I have to say, for anybody that has any kind of neurodegenerative, any accident, come back to yoga. This Yoga Moves is the answer.
If I see anybody that look like they have multiple sclerosis, I tell them about Yoga Moves.
It's for all people with any ability, whether you can walk and stand, or if you're in a wheelchair. Every class has something that you can take with you.
You will stop losing mobility and flexibility.
Since we're on a fixed income, this wouldn't be available to a person of my status financially without the generosity of the people that support this movement. And for this, I am eternally thankful. And I feel it's a privilege to have an association with any one of the instructors. It's a blessing to find it. And I would tell somebody who's resistant the way I was that this is a no pain environment, and it's spiritual in its complexity and its integrity.
It opens up again your eyes so you don't close yourself in.
Given the resources that it takes to provide these classes with multiple teachers, anywhere from 3 to 5 teachers per class, we need support. We need support from our sponsors, our donors. We just couldn't do it without the support.
I'm not going to give up on things. MS may have taken my legs out, but I still have beautiful things to look forward to.
I am here to fight.
The quality of the instructors is absolutely amazing. The acceptance is unconditional. That means a lot. And that's what was missing in my life. I now have a lifeline and motivation to continue and to bring out the
Thank God.
best in myself.
All right, so great video, and I think it just highlights what Yoga Moves MS does for people. So anyone here who has not engaged with Yoga Moves or tried out a class, or anyone online, encourage everyone to just try it out. I think you'll realize what a difference it makes in your life. So next, it's an honor to be able to formally introduce Mindy Eisenberg. She founded Yoga Moves MS 20 years ago. She's truly become a leader in the MS community, nationwide. She has really brought yoga to the forefront for the MS community, again, across the country. And then, bringing health and holistic wellness to the forefront as well. Again, it's so important to focus holistically on the patient, and when you have a disorder such as MS, to look at everything else that we're going to talk about tonight and that we've talked about at some of these other seminars. So it's so critically important. So really want to thank Mindy for all she's done for everyone with MS and the team she's built. It's truly amazing. So without further ado, Mindy Eisenberg.
Thank you, Dr. Belkin. All right. So today we are going to feature a remarkable lineup of speakers who will lead us through some of the most impactful and often under-discussed aspects of life with MS. It's not often that we see events featuring these intimate but very important discussions. Each presentation this evening is designed to provide insight, tools, and a sense of connection, because you are not alone in this journey. We are thrilled to see the response we've had to these events. Today is our 6th year of providing these forums, all of which have had incredible attendance, which tells us that the information is important to our community. We have an amazing line of speakers who have great knowledge in their respective topics. Thank you to Dr. Belkin and Dr. Voci for their leadership of Yoga Moves MS and contributions to make this event possible. About the virtual exhibit hall, everyone always asks, what is the virtual exhibit hall? Well, in that hall, it contains information, bios about all of our speakers, our generous sponsors, our exhibitors, our partners who made this program possible. There also will be presentation slides and handouts, things that you can refer to that have been put together by the speakers for you. We will notify all registrants when the exhibit hall is updated with the recordings for the event. Please go to yogamovesanybody.org under the resources blog to find the virtual exhibit hall. For those of you in person, you can also see how to access the hall in the programs that are on the table. We really value your feedback about our events. Please, 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 I beg you to fill out the surveys. You'll receive a survey in your email box tomorrow morning. So please fill it out, and we'll just keep bugging you till you fill it out. Thank you to all of our attendees. You are the reason that we're able to be here together. Namaste to our planning event committee. They came up with the topics for today. I'm looking at their smiling faces. They help us to think about the big picture and then the small details to make sure that this event is the very best it can be for you. There are so many people to express deep gratitude to, and each and every one of you are vital to this community. Laureen Branch, Marnie Sharon, Karen Cohen, Lindsay Dems, Kathy McRae, Leah Narens, Beth Stone, Lori Svensson. I always call her out. I don't see her, but she has her hands in every single thing related to this event. The stuff you see on the computer, the beautiful emails, the tables, you name it. So a big, 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 big thank you to Lori, even though I don't see. Oh, there she is. And Mark Wagner. I think he's online tonight. And Kathy Willoughby. They've all contributed so much. Kathy, raise your hand over there. There you go. There you go. Special thanks to Elaine Gross of Elaine Gross Photography. I say it every time because she's with us every time, taking pictures of our events, creating memories, and volunteers her time. So when you see her, hug her. Namaste to our amazing Yoga Moves MS instructors. Many are here today. Please stand up if you're a Yoga Moves teacher and you're here so we can all clap for you. Mandy Bush, Anna Cairns, Jessica Corey, Jill Dunphy, Deborah Henderson, Betty Ann Hodges, Julie Katz, Mallory Lakoski, Julie Levinson, Kathy McRae, Barb Wilker, Marcia Williams, and Barb Baker. It's an amazing group of instructors. We're so lucky to have them. Namaste to our generous sponsors and exhibitors. There's just no way. We cannot do it without your support. Our top sponsor, TG Therapeutics, thank you so much. I know you're out there. I saw you guys. There they are. There they are. Our next second level, Novartis. I know you guys are out there. Yes, thank you for your support. Biogen and Genentech, we love you. And Alexion and Amgen, Bristol Myers Squibb, and EMD Sereno. Thank you. We truly, you can imagine what it takes to put on an event like this. I feel like I'm planning a wedding over and over again every year. Exhibitors and partners, Michigan Institute for Neurological Disorders known as the Mind, Memorial Healthcare Institute for Neuroscience, Better Life Home Care and Therapeutic Massage. For those of you in person, you might have had the benefit of a little massage today. Henry Ford Health Therapy Dogs. What a sweet addition. The MS Society, Athletico, and Barb's Passion. Check her out. You can also contact her through the virtual exhibit hall. Without further ado, I will introduce our first speaker. You are really in for a treat. I am very excited to introduce the very popular influencer, Damian Washington. He's an actor, he's an MS influencer, and he's a self-described nerd. If laughter is medicine, then Damian Washington is out here handing out prescriptions. He has MS, which means his body sometimes does things he didn't ask it to do that are not at all very funny. But instead of getting mad, he decided to help others going through the same thing. Damian brings an electric presence to the stage, blending storytelling, advocacy, and a touch of well-placed humor to break down complex health topics. His YouTube channel has over 6,700 subscribers. He's a beacon of real talk, inspiration, and straight-up MS truths for the patient community. He's also worked with major organizations like Genentech, Novartis, and Johnson & Johnson to amplify the voices of MS patients worldwide. Beyond digital advocacy, Damian is a seasoned speaker, chairing discussions at international MS conferences like ECTRIMS and collaborating with patient-focused organizations across the globe. I think he just moved to France. He was in Spain. I can't keep up with him. Literally, like in the last few days, to make sure people with MS get the support they need. At today's Yoga Moves MS Holistic and Wellness Forum, he'll bring us his energy, honesty, charisma to talk about MS in a way that makes people feel strong, more hopeful, and maybe even a little lighter. Without further ado, Damian, you're on.
Y'all.
And Damian,
Shout out to you, Mindy. Hey, girl. Hey, good to see you.
You look really good, and it's really late where you're at, right?
I'm trying to keep up with you, okay? And yes, it is very
What
late.
time is it, Damian?
It's 11:30.
Oh,
I'm in
God.
full business day.
Damian didn't realize that what he agreed to when he agreed to it.
Right.
He forgot what the
that is
time
true.
difference was.
That is true. However, I'm here for people with MS in a way in which I don't think people were there for me when I was diagnosed. So I'm a energetic guy, and I always aim to be the thing that I would have liked when I was a newly diagnosed patient. So I'm here today to talk about MS and the power of humor. MS ain't funny, y'all. When you're diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, nobody hands you a guidebook. Like you get an MRI, you get a spinal tap and pharmaceuticals that might relieve a symptom or two for just a little bit, and a pack of smiling pamphlets of people just looking off into the distance like everything's okay. But I needed a little bit more. Like it felt like I was living inside a video game where the controller was slowly breaking. Somewhere between this is hard and this is real. Moments began to appear that were, I don't know, funny. Because, like I say, MS itself is not funny. Holy moly, it is not. Because life with MS is so specific, and sometimes it's so bizarre and it's human that if you frame it just right, the truth of it all kind of cracks you up. First things first, I am no comedian. Okay. I'm just some dude has MS, and I happen to make content about it. So the YouTube channel that I started off as a place for me to process all of this. And it's since grown into a place where over 6,000 people say, my man, I feel the same. Not because we're all the same, but because the moments are. You ever get brain fog so dense, you go to the kitchen, forget what you were doing, and end up staring into and potentially emotionally bonding with the inside of your fridge? Yeah, that is what I would call Misty the brain fog unicorn. Am I sharing this? No, it's not shared. Let's make sure you do that and share that. Yeah, this moment right here. Yeah, when you're just kind of spacey and you're like, wait, what's going on? Misty is just a character that I came up with because she's sparkly and she's majestic and she will absolutely ruin your productivity. And then let's see what else do I have here. And then there is deductible. Deductible is a raging beast who blocks your access to medications until you offer a blood sacrifice or $6,000 going into the two. I mean, look at him. He's powerful. He's expensive. He's roaring with bureaucratic fury atop a pile of medical bills. These characters, these characters are a part of something that, I've been creating. I call it the Chronivore universe.
Damien,
Like a mix of, yes.
they can't see your slides for some reason.
Oh Lord, they can't see my slides. Oh, that's half the point. That is
They're like, what is he talking about?
Oh, it's okay. So can you see this? Great. That's deductible. Can you see the deductible?
There we go.
Ooh. Well, I don't know about this because this is an incredibly major part of my presentation here. Can we see deductible? Okay. Now, there's that's what I'm saying. I could have named her something else, but somehow Misty the brain fog unicorn came to my brain. She's sparkly, she's ethereal, she forgets what she was doing mid-flight. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Also, this is deductible. I mean, look at deductible. Like, why is it like this? Why do I have to like give a blood sacrifice or $6,000? Let's see, where was I? Right, this is a whole universe that came to me one day when I had a whisper in my head, and it was just like, what if my symptoms were like Pokemon and they battled each other? Like, which one would win? And just like that silly little thought, that spark of humor became a source of power. The carnivore universe is absurd. Like, again, chronic carnivore. Like, it's absurd, but it's also empowering, and it's most importantly, it's communal, because MS can feel incredibly isolating. But are you at this pain party by yourself? Because I'm here too. This universe is an example of me turning our shared pressure points into something we can laugh at together, to give shape to the invisible things that we wrestle with, to make you go, wait, is that me? Or do my spastic legs make me feel like a goat on a cake on a mountain? Like my man Sir Spasticus right here. Sir Spasticus is stiff of limb. Or what is it? What does it say? He's stiff of limb and he's strong of heart. It has grit, okay? And it has a little dash of the ridiculous to help you breathe a little easier, even if it's only for the second when you're laughing. These characters aren't just me being silly, they're mirrors. Each one of them reflect a symptom or a struggle or a system that makes life with a chronic condition that much harder. But instead of letting these things define us, we name them and we laugh at them if possible. Not because it's funny, but because laughter is power. It's not that ha 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 pretend everything is fine. Laughter. It's not that toxic positivity laughter that just kind of slaps a smile on a deep, deep wound. I'm talking about the type of laughter that knows pain, feels it, and winks at it a little bit. Because humor, it builds bridges between people. It says, yeah, this is hard. I'm scared. But also, I could have worked out longer this morning if Sir Spasticus didn't show up and slow a man down. And when you laugh at that, like you own your experience, and that type of ownership, man, it is delicious. And it helps you thrive. Thriving doesn't always look like running marathons or hiking up mountains with a smile on your face. Sometimes it just looks like dragging yourself to the couch, drinking some strong tea, and taking a moment to rest, or taking a moment to make someone else smile. It's how I use humor. It's how I use humor. It's how I lead. It's how I built community. Over 10,000 people on Instagram and still counting. Not pretending to be stronger than MS, but by knowing and showing what it's like to live with it, laugh at it, and lead anyway. That's what you're doing when you lead with your truth in a way that shines. And if you ever need a little help doing that, you can see I'm tapping into my gift, to my humor. It helps me. So what is it that you will tap into that'll help you? So I built this universe. Like, don't nobody take my idea. I made it. It's mine. But really, it's all of ours. Like, it's built by the people who get it because they live it, and they choose to laugh anyway. You're not alone, man. And even when you don't have your agency, you have power, man. And your power, it might look like humor. That's mine. Your power might look like storytelling, or it might look like thriving beautifully through the ups and the downs together. Last time, to be clear, MS did not give me punchlines. But I'm finding them because they're right there. That's how I aim to, as a fellow MSer and friend of mine says on her podcast, thrive instead of survive. Thank you. Shout to Mindy Eisenberg. Shout to Big Bill. Shout to all y'all out there who's shown up through it all and with it all, because y'all help reflect to me that my patient experience is important, just like I am here to reflect to you that your patient experience is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. Namaste. Namaste to
Namaste.
you. You have quite a creative mind, you do.
Something's going on up here. I don't know what it is.
So, do we have online questions coming in? Do we have in-person questions coming in?
No is an acceptable answer. Like I say, I'm just a nerd who has MS that people listen to
I
for some
think
odd reason.
you just answered all that they needed to know, Damien, about humor. Oh, wait. Wait. All right. Your question.
How do we get in touch with Damien's information or page or Instagram? How can we contact you?
First and foremost, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/NoStressMS. Pretty simple.
No Stress MS.
No Stress MS on YouTube. Also, I'm Damien Washington on pretty much every platform you can find out there. Because like I say, I'm an actor. I've done, I don't know, 36 commercials and voiceovers with folks like Elizabeth Banks and Kevin Bacon and Shaquille O'Neal. And so like, it's my job to be public. So y'all see my name, Damien Washington. So look for that name. You will find this nerd.
Okay, and also you can learn about the nerd in our virtual exhibit hall, and you will have all the references to get to Damien and his characters. Where online they're saying they love your characters, nerd Damien, and they want to know if you did the artwork.
Ooh, I didn't do the artwork. I had my friend. No, I had my friend, the generative pre-trained transformer, ChatGPT, do these things. So it does what it does because I put the stuff in there. So, and you should see all of the drafts that I have. They're not as good as this. I think I'm like Mindy said, I'm currently in Madrid. And in 12 days, I will be in France, in Paris, France. That will be my new home for another maybe 10 months. And somewhere in between there, I will put the whole Carnivore universe out and pit them against each other. And because I enjoy them. And if I enjoy them, that means somebody else will. And hopefully you guys will too.
So we've got another question from the audience or from our registration process. Some people put some questions together. Damien, how do you maintain a sense of humor given your MS diagnosis?
Y'all, this is me almost crying, man. Because again, I got the same thing you do, man. It don't look like yours do, maybe, but it's there. And sometimes I'm walking and now it's like, you're not walking anymore. Or you can't see as well as you can before. Maintain my sense of humor. I'm just a funny guy. So even when things are not funny, because I live with humor, it's that close to me. Humor's never really somewhere far behind. So I think the main thing is to honor wherever I am at any given moment, especially if it's terrible. But when it's not, or if it is terrible and I have some sort of room for jokes or humorous insight or whatever sort of perspective that is outside the norm of me hurty right now. That's it's kind of what it turns into. And things are only funny because they're true. I think that's why my stuff resonates with people because it's silly, but it's true.
Mhm.
So I'm not trying to find humor. It's just there, and I'm the guy who sees it and stands 10 toes down when it's time to say it.
Thank you. We've got one more question. You are an inspirational figure and are appreciated for giving your time and talent to the MS world. So, tell us what exciting things you have on the horizon coming up.
Again, like I say, I'm moving to Paris. So that's exciting. And the carnivore universe, that's exciting. Because that's a brainchild that is I think has some legs, and it'll be great when it can walk and you all can love the baby and hug the baby and kiss the baby and we can all laugh at it together. Um, the things that are exciting for me is still being able to show up because even yesterday, y'all, it was quite unpleasant.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
we lost Damien.
Uh-oh.
Continuing to show up as
Oh,
best as
there
I
he is.
can.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. What is our next? Do we have a time for another question, Mindy?
I think we have one more, Lori. Yeah.
Okay. Hold on.
Also, I meditate 3 times a day, y'all. So like this,
Read one more.
like that's something that I'm in an hour and a half every day. So when things get sort of not overwhelming, but either emotional or sort of kind of feels bigger than me, like I just sitting here in front of y'all, I can't see y'all, but I know you're here at the other side of that lens. And that's the only thing that's important to me. And that can be overwhelming. So I just close my eyes and just be in presence with all of you.
Thank you. I think we have just one more question now. So is there any other question here in the? Oh,
Ooh,
wow. Now we've
lots.
got lots more. You've inspired.
Okay.
You've
We got a
inspired
whole
people.
program, y'all.
You were just looking so zen, Damien. You know, Damien meditates and he
That's what I'm
does
saying.
yoga.
I spend an hour and a half like this every day.
Are you exaggerating, Damien?
No, no, like even on a bad day, it's only an hour, like a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the afternoon, and I don't get to it in the evening. But if I'm right, half hour every 4 or so hours, I sit like this. And that's the thing that kind of keeps me a touch on the even keel when things are just not even, man. And even if I can't walk very well, or can't see very well, or I don't know the last time I went to the bathroom like a normal person, it helps me just sort of be more even so I can be my best self, so I can continue forward accordingly.
Thank you. Hold on. What were your first signs of MS?
Ha. Um, my wife, someone I've been with 25 years this year, She was the
Yay.
person. Pardon? But she was the person who was like, yo, my man, I've been next to you for years. You do not hold me the same way when you walk down the street. I don't know what's going on with you, but something's wrong with you. And when I went to the ophthalmologist, because I wear nerd goggles, because I'm a nerd, the ophthalmologist was like, oh, yeah, no, your eyes are fine, but you clearly are having vision problems. I don't know what it's going to be, but you need to find another doctor about this. And I think she suspected that it was MS, but it's nobody's business to tell you you have this thing except for someone who is going to sit you down and help you develop a plan to move forward to the next thing. So yeah, I mean, my wonky vision and someone outside of me saying that something's off with you, man. Those were the first signs that I have MS, and I just started making content for us all and was unstoppable lunatic person with making sure it was up there every week. And one day Montel Williams gave me a buzz and he was like, hey, do you want to be on my show? And I was like, oh, yes, sir. And then also I just was like, okay, I think I can kind of calm down a little bit if one of the biggest MS guys out here is like, yo, you want to be on my show? Then I've done enough. I've done plenty. Well, not enough. I've done plenty. So let me just ease off the brakes a little bit and see what the next thing is.
Okay. Any other questions here? I'll throw one more out because I'm not sure what our next step is. How does MS affect your day-to-day life? And I don't know if you said this already, but how do you stay positive?
Mm. That pause is me trying to find truth in that, because sometimes it is unpositive, friend. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's you can't, like I say, you can't walk, you can't see. You can't you feel like it's an identity stealing thing. And that's why programs like this are helpful, because it gives you a way to step outside of yourself so that you can make another set of comfort, because all the comfort that you are missing is old stuff, and this is your life now. So you need to find a new way for new comfort. And that's literally why I meditate so often, because somewhere in here, about 10, 15 minutes in, it's kind of put off to the side in a little box, and it'll be there eventually, when I get back up and doing my thing. And oh, maybe it's too hot, or oh, I didn't eat the right thing, etc., etc. But finding time to shut out the world and to get in touch with what I am outside of this ball of hurt, that is helpful. And the people who say they can't meditate, well, if you can't sit by yourself in a room for 5 minutes, how do you think the rest of the people around you feel sitting around you for more than 5 minutes, friend? So you just figure out how to sit with yourself. And as you do, you'll there's some beauty in it that is,
And Damien,
it's indescribable.
Damien, I don't want to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
do you have to stop your mind when you're meditating?
Oh no, that's the heart, the lungs breathe, the heart beats, the mind thinks.
Thank you, Damien. You're the guru.
Now, when you don't have any more thoughts, you're no longer in this mortal coil. So it's just important to recognize the thoughts, and that practice, you are literally practicing seeing the thought, but not fully embodying it, not fully going right after it. You're recognizing it, you see it, you're like, that's a thought, cool. I don't necessarily have to put my energy behind it. I can refocus my energy on something else about this right now experience that is also going on right now. You're not going to stop your thoughts until you're no longer here, friends. So the sooner you learn to become buddies with your thoughts and not let them run your world, so to speak, um, then you find power.
Thank you, Damien. One last question you had.
How long have you had MS? I didn't hear you say.
Ooh, child. That's a very good question. I was diagnosed in 2017, so I don't know how many years that is. That's enough. Yeah, 2017, and it's 2025. So
She's begging for another question.
She made me do it. Mindy made me do it. But listen, how did you feel when you first got your diagnosis? Because for me, I felt like I was robbed, like somebody stole something from me.
girl, woman, lady, madam. Yeah, somebody stole something from you. Yes. Um, when I got diagnosed, because I do silly videos and like I'm on I'm on countless silly videos. I was doing a video where I battled sumo wrestlers. And I'm talking like sumo champions, okay? Um that that I had already got the paper that said, "Oh, I have multiple sclerosis." And it was like, this is weird cuz why? But I still had to show up and do my videos. And I was I tried to battle that sumo wrestler, and I ran at that dude as hard as I could with everything I had. And you can see the video, it's on my website. You can see the ease with which that man picked me up, spun me around, and threw me like no thing was happening. That that terribly painful feeling was an example of the layers of uncomfortable pain that I was in. Um, so yeah, I felt pretty terribly, and depending on the time of the day it is right now, or how hot it is outside, or did I eat the right thing, like I also feel terribly. And that's okay. That's where you are right here, right now, and that's what I get from meditating and stuff. Because you listen to what it is right now, and you accept it. And if you accept it, you get to move beyond it, and expand beyond it. And that is really something you learn. You learn with practice. You are practicing sitting by yourself. You are practicing doing the downward dog and doing the motion with the bandy bands. It's a practice. It's not fun. It's uncomfortable, but there's something beautiful on the other side of it. Honestly, I would not be able to be here right now talking to all of you wonderful, beautiful, special people if I hadn't figured out my own way to not let that be the megalith that it seems to present itself to be.
Thank you, Damien. Thank you. I feel like I planted you, but you said everything we want you to say because you're so zen. It just came out.
Well, this is why we hang out, Mandy Eisenberg. This is why we cool people. No, really, you can never get back. You can always make back money, but you cannot get back time. Thank you for sharing some of your time with me. It is the most valuable thing that you have. And I'm glad that you shared some of it with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. Now you can go to sleep. Sweet dreams.
Ooh, child, nah, I got more work to do, babe, before I go to bed. But really, thank you.
Good luck in your travels.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste, all the way.
Okay, so next I have the pleasure and honor of introducing Dr. Taylor Hess. She is a graduate of Michigan State University's College of Osteopathic Medicine, where she graduated top of her class. She completed her neurology residency through the Beaumont/Corwell Health System. And during her neurology training, she developed a sincere interest and passion for helping patients with the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis and related disorders. She made the decision to dedicate her career to helping patients with MS, both from a clinical and research perspective. She completed her fellowship at MIND, or Michigan Institute for Neurological Disorders, Comprehensive MS Center, where she's now a practicing neuroimmunologist. Given that I work with her every day, I can confidently say you will not find a better MS physician anywhere. So without further ado, Dr. Taylor Hess.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Belkin, and thank you, Mindy, for putting this on. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you all about the emerging therapies in multiple sclerosis and the road ahead. I'm going to stand a little to the side so I can see here too. All right, so to get started, we'll give an intro about MS. We'll also talk about some emerging therapies in multiple sclerosis, kind of what is a clinical trial, the mechanism of action of the drugs, the risks, the benefits, the status on approval, and we'll leave some time for questions at the end. So MS is a chronic neurodegenerative condition of the central nervous system, or the brain and the spinal cord. Although many treatments are effective early in the stages of the disease, we know that early treatment is important and critical to managing disease activity. Before recently, there hasn't been much focus on research for progressive forms of the disease, including treatment of non-relapsing secondary progressive, and that's something that we're going to touch on today. So to start, what are the phases in a clinical trial and why does it matter? The drugs that we're going to talk about today, I'll kind of tell you the status on where they lie in these clinical trials and how close we are to approval. So what is phase 1 of a clinical trial? Phase 1 is the smallest amount of patients and it evaluates the safety of the drug. If the drug is determined to be safe, then we can move on to phase 2. In phase 2, we look at the effectiveness of the drug. So does the drug do what it's supposed to do, and does it meet its primary endpoint? If the answer is yes, we can use more patients and move on to phase 3 of a clinical trial. Phase 3, we'll compare it to placebo or to the standard of care. The goal of this phase is to determine, is it more effective than what we currently have? If the answer is yes, then again, we can move on. And in this phase, we would move on to phase 4, which is real-life long-term monitoring. Okay, so now that we've reviewed that, let's get into the drugs. So the 5 drugs that I want to talk about are tolebrutinib, frexalimab, CAR T therapy. I'm going to probably butcher the way that you say this one, but I'm going to call it ibudilast, and then pipe 307. I have a picture here of T cells and B cells, which are 2 important cells of the immune system. And as you can see here, many of the different drugs are going to act on receptors on each of these individual cells. As we talk about the drugs more individually, I'll kind of tell you how they work and the mechanism of action. The first drug that I want to talk about is tolebrutinib. Tolebrutinib is a BTK inhibitor, or Bruton's tyrosine kinase inhibitor. The way that this drug works is by acting on B cells and microglia. Many of you have probably heard of B cells because some of our drugs right now are B cell depleters, or they decrease B cell counts. This drug works a little bit differently. Rather than totally depleting the cells, it's going to act on the activity of B cells. It's also going to act on a really small cell in the central nervous system called microglia. And the reason that that's so important, our microglia are felt to be responsible for the progressive part of MS, or that chronic smoldering inflammation. The inflammation that patients say, I'm getting worse, and the neurologist says, but your MRI is stable. That's where we talk about microglia. So this chronic smoldering inflammation that's going on. And the goal of tolebrutinib is that it can penetrate the brain and get to these small cells called microglia. Potential risks of tolebrutinib are liver enzyme elevations, and as a side effect would also be headaches. The benefit of tolebrutinib is that it targets the central nervous inflammation and slows disability progression. So let's get into the clinical trial. Tolobrutinib had a trial called Hercules. This study evaluated patients with non-relapsing secondary progressive MS. It found that tolobrutinib, compared to placebo, had a 31% reduction in confirmed disability progression at 6 months, which is a huge amount. Not only did it have a reduction in confirmed disability progression, but it also had confirmed disability improvement, meaning some patients got better with tolobrutinib compared to not. Double the amount of patients on tolobrutinib compared to placebo had improvement in their disability. This suggests that tolobrutinib may slow disability progression, and it really is the first drug of its kind, and it's so exciting to finally hopefully be able to have something that might help patients who have non-relapsing disease. So how close are we to tolobrutinib is the question that everyone wants to know. The answer is it's under priority review by the FDA right now, as it was designated a breakthrough therapy. The FDA is supposed to let us know by September of 2025 what will happen with this drug. But for right now, it's not currently available to the public, but hopefully we'll have more information in the fall. And I'm hopeful that it will be approved and be able to be given to patients. All right. So the next drug that I want to talk about, one more thing to add about tolobrutinib is it's a pill. Okay, next drug is frexalimab. This drug is an infusion therapy. It's a little bit different than some of the infusion therapies that we have right now. Rather than depleting or decreasing your white blood cell count, it's going to interfere with how the cells talk to each other. So it's a CD40 ligand and CD40, and again, it's affecting how they talk to each other without decreasing that white blood cell count. This drug is an infusion therapy. Potential risks would be nasopharyngitis or COVID-19, and a side effect would be headache. Something I want to add, though, about COVID-19, so while this was seen in the clinical trials, this phase 2 study was also happening during the COVID-19 pandemic, so it's not surprising that that would be a potential side effect seen given the time. The benefit of frexalimab is it reduces new enhancing lesions, and it was also found to decrease a protein called neurofilament light chain, which is thought to be a marker of neuronal cell damage and thought to be partially involved in the inflammatory activity in multiple sclerosis. So how close are we on frexalimab? Frexalimab is actually currently enrolling patients right now in phase 3 studies. Patients that are potential candidates would be patients with relapsing, remitting, and secondary progressive MS. And I think if you ever want more information on clinical trials, you can always go to clinicaltrials.gov to hear more information about the current trials that are enrolling. All right, the next drug I would like to talk about is CAR T therapy. This drug has been used for different cancers, and now they're looking at it in multiple sclerosis. The way that this drug works is they're going to take blood and specifically take your T cells. Then they're going to take them to a lab, and they're going to go ahead and modify them and make them different. Once they're done, they're going to come back, and they're going to put them back into your blood. And the point is that this time, they're going to act on CD19, which is a type of B cell, and kind of modify it. The goal of CAR T therapy is, rather than needing recurrent infusions over time, is that this could potentially be a one-time event that kind of resets your B cells per se. By doing this, potential risks would be kind of a pro-inflammatory cascade and potential neurotoxicity. And then the benefits would be, like I said, not needing redosing and then halting disease progression and reducing MS relapses. So for how close are we to CAR T therapy? It's currently enrolling, but phase 1 trials. So kind of that first stage looking at safety, if you guys remember from earlier. All right, so the next drug, ibudilast, is a pill. It's a phosphodiesterase inhibitor that suppresses pro-inflammatory cells, so kind of turning down inflammation. This drug has risks of GI side effects, fatigue, and depression. And then the benefits of this drug are that it's neuroprotective and potentially slows brain atrophy. So where are we at with this drug? This drug actually already completed phase 2 trials, but from what I researched, I don't think they're enrolling for phase 3 at this time. I don't think it's started yet. Okay, so the drugs that I've talked about so far are all disease-modifying therapies. However, this drug is a little bit different. Rather than a disease-modifying therapy, the goal of this drug is remyelination or repair therapy. In order to talk about this, I kind of want to talk about what is demyelination, and I'm going to use an analogy. So I like to think of demyelination as if you have your iPhone charger and you look at the cord, What surrounds the wire is a rubber coating. When you have MS, that rubber coating is attacked. It's getting demyelinated. That means that wire is exposed, and it's like you have a short in the cord. It's not communicating the way that you want it to or the way that it should. Now, we have some neuroplasticity where in MS, or in all of us, we can potentially repair that on our own. However, in MS, it's impaired, and it's not being repaired as much as we would like. So that's where this drug comes into play. In order to myelinate, you need something called an oligodendrocyte. So oligodendrocytes make myelin. So this drug acts on a receptor called M1 on an oligodendrocyte precursor cell. And the goal of this drug is to change that oligodendrocyte precursor cell into a mature oligodendrocyte, which can then go and make myelin. So the hope of this drug is remyelination or repair, is my long-winded way of saying that. So potential risks of pipe 307, no major safety signals have been reported at this time, so I don't have too much to address there. And then in terms of benefits, like I mentioned, the benefit would be remyelination or repair. So how close are we to this drug? This drug is currently in phase 2 trials, which are expected to be completed this year. And then hopefully we'd have more information after the trial is completed. All right, so those are the 5 drugs that I wanted to talk about today. I did get some questions via email, so I'll go ahead and start with those, and then we can open it up to see if anybody else has any additional questions. So the first question that I was asked is, do I have any news on biotin for remyelination? That's a great question. There was an initial study, I think it was on like 154 patients, and it was looking at high-dose biotin and confirmed disability improvement. The initial study looked good. It looked like some small amount, I think 12% of patients had some improvement in disability. However, they then went to replicate the study using a much larger subgroup of patients, over 600 patients, and they were not able to replicate the same findings. There was not any statistically significant confirmed disability improvement. There was another really small study, only of 5 patients, so I would take this one with a grain of salt, but in these 5 patients with progressive MS, they also gave high-dose biotin, and they found that these 5 patients had an increase in inflammatory activity. Again, not enough patients to make many conclusions, but at this time, there's not enough to suggest biotin as a potential remyelination for MS. The next question I got was, could ivermectin be helpful or harmful for MS? I've had this question a lot in clinic and obviously here again, and there's really just not data. There's no published, no randomized controlled trials that look at ivermectin or long-term ivermectin use, and particularly in MS. So I can't really say too much regarding that just because I don't have data to support it one way or the other. The next question is, what is the state of MS funding for research given the current federal administration? So on a federal administration standpoint, there has been some budget cuts in terms of research. However, with MS specifically, we don't just rely on the federal administration for research. We rely on the National MS Society, who actually donated $18 million to a multi-year research fund where they're supporting MS research, which is pretty amazing. And then in addition to the National MS Society, there's pharmaceutical companies that support research, private companies that support research. And then many studies are not just based in the United States, but it's a global effort. So I still think that there's plenty of ability to continue with MS research, and I wouldn't let that scare us too much. Okay, my last question is, should wine be eliminated? Probably a bit of an individualized decision. I don't think that wine necessarily has to be eliminated. However, chronic alcohol use is associated with neurodegeneration, so I do not recommend heavy alcohol use. But if you want my personal perspective, I think an occasional glass of wine is probably just fine. Everything in moderation. And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
My question is about CRISPR. And I know that they are making great strides with other diseases with that technology. And do you have any idea how far out that might be for MS?
Unfortunately, I do not. I'm not familiar with any data specifically regarding that in multiple sclerosis. I'm sorry.
A recent study came out of the University of Iowa, one of their hospitals, regarding cancer treatment drugs and the use of high doses of vitamin C at the same time to improve their efficacy. Could you see that rolling over and relating to MS drugs? A possibility?
I have not looked into that before, but as you're getting my wheels turning, I'm just thinking about vitamin C and potentially, stimulation of the immune system. And obviously, we know that MS is an immune-mediated disease, and we don't want to stimulate the immune system too much. So I'm not sure that would translate, but I'm not familiar with any data. I'd have to look into it.
This came in through registration. Is there any progress on myelin repair?
So that was one of the drugs that we just talked about, that PIPE 307. That's a study that's looking specifically at myelin repair. And the studies are looking to complete this year. And then hopefully we'll be able to share the data on if those studies are promising and if they're going to hopefully expand to phase 3.
I just wanted to ask, who was your favorite patient? I'm just kidding. I wanted to ask about remyelinization. When you talk about that term, does that mean you're cured when you no longer have any holes in your myelin?
That's a good question. Obviously, that would be the dream, right? A cure for MS, I think, would be all of our hopes and dreams combined. With repair or remyelination therapy, it's not necessarily a cure because it's not treating the cause of MS or the start of the inflammation, but it's hopefully repairing the damage that's been done from the inflammation.
I have a question about the CAR T one. Is that where they are taking the cells and like changing them and reinfusing them kind of? Have they seen any major like anaphylaxis with that or rejection? Because I feel like that would have like a high risk for that.
So there has been some inflammatory cascade as a side effect. However, it's still in phase 1. So that's what this study is looking at, is safety. So I think there's only been a few patients, and I think they've also looked at progressive forms of MS. And so far it's been very well tolerated from a safety perspective. But that would be, I guess, a theoretical risk. It's kind of that infusion reaction, but so far it looks good.
I'm in a support group, and one of our members actually lives in the UK, and they were doing a study that took metformin and another antihistamine. And I know they had gone through phase 1 and 2. I know at least in the UK. Is that being done in the US, and is that something that's on the horizon for remyelination?
They are currently looking at metformin as remyelination in the UK, as you stated. I'm not familiar with any US trials looking at it, but it is something that's being researched. The data, they did look into mice models, which obviously doesn't always translate into humans, and the mice models did look good. So that's why they're looking at it now, and clemastine is the other medication they're using together, both of which are in the UK. And again, I'm not familiar with anything here, but clinicaltrials.gov would have more information.
Any further thoughts on findings for SPMS with fraxilimab?
Yes.
Probably not.
No, that's okay. I got it. So with frexalimab, they are currently enrolling patients in the phase 3 trial for secondary progressive MS or SPMS. So it's definitely a possibility, and some preliminary data that's been released from phase 2 does look reassuring. I'm hopeful that will be a possibility in the future too.
Of the 4 trials that you mentioned, actually 5 you mentioned, can you speak to whether or not MIND is enrolling for any of those and or inclusion criteria?
Yes, I can. So frexalimab is a trial that MIND is participating in, so for relapsing, remitting, and secondary progressive MS. And then the VISTA trial, which is PIPE 307, was also done at MIND. However, that study has completed enrollment. In terms of RRMS and SPMS and frexalimab for that trial, there's a really long list of inclusion and exclusion criteria. I think you can actually find more information on Sanofi Studies, their website. That's who sponsors the medication. So yeah, it's a long list. But if you ask, there is a research, if you went to MIND, there is a research coordinator who could go through the inclusion and exclusion criteria with you. And obviously your physician could potentially see if you would be a candidate.
Of the 5,000 supplements that are out there, are there any that are medically proven to maybe support remyelination?
I'm not familiar with any specific supplements that are approved for remyelination. The tough thing about supplements is they're not always regulated, so it's hard to recommend one way or the other, but nothing that I'm familiar with.
I've been hearing about stem cell. Is that similar to the PIPE? No, which one is the replacement? Read my notes.
The CAR T therapy?
Yeah, the replace, like the stem cell real?
It would be still a little bit different than CAR T therapy stem cell would be, but Stem cell therapy basically looks at relapsing disease is what they use it for right now. I'm not as familiar with that. That's not something we do around here, but Cleveland Clinic is a kind of a local or close place that does do stem cell treatment.
With these studies, are they not double-blinded studies?
They are.
They are? Okay, so patient don't know if they're getting sugar pill or the actual drug, right?
If it's a placebo drug, yes, but not all drugs are compared against placebo. Some drugs are compared against a pill. So, for example, that tolebrutinib study that I mentioned in relapsing remitting MS, that was compared against teriflunomide, also known as Aubagio.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is stem cell therapy, I think we just had a question about that, something that you would recommend or see any benefits for MS patients?
I think in highly relapsing or highly active MS, there is definitely a role for stem cell therapy. Unfortunately, it usually requires a larger academic center such as Cleveland Clinic.
Have you heard of using Ocrevus for short-term use, like for 1 year only?
I would say that that's really individualized based on probably the patient and physician relationship. I don't know that I can answer that without knowing more information, but that's definitely something they could talk with their provider about. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me, Mindy.
Dr. Hess. Thank you so much. She's full of so much knowledge. Let's just take a little movement break before we get on to the next topic. So perhaps you take both arms up over your head. You can do this online or here. Yes, reach tall, spread your fingers. Yes, and then exhale and let them go without hitting somebody next to you if you're near somebody. Awesome. Turn your head towards the right as you inhale. Inhale back and exhale back to center. Other way, turning your head towards the left and back to center. All right, take your right arm up overhead, reach it high. We're going to do a side bend. Feel your sitting bones, your buttocks on your seat. Reach up higher on your inhale and exhale. Take a side bend now towards your left. It actually doesn't really matter which way you go. And then inhale, reach high. And exhale, let the arm go. Awesome. Left arm, reach it up. Reach it high. Good. Exhale now. Take your side bend towards your right. It should feel really good. You're getting a good stretch on the left side of your body. Yes. Oh, that feels really good. Inhale, come back up. And exhale, release it down. So if you're not eating, you can do a twist. Otherwise, you might want to wait until you're done eating. I've got our physical therapist, pelvic floor therapist looking at me. Are you really going to have them do a twist now? So it's known to help digestion. But if you're still eating, hold off. For those of you who aren't, you can take your right hand outside your left thigh. Inhale, grow tall. Exhale, feel your twist. So you may gaze and you might move your upper body towards the side. And then inhale, come back to center, other side. So now left hand outside, right thigh. I always say grow tall because you make space in yoga. It's all about making space. And then exhale, go ahead and do your twist. Head turns last. Feel your shoulders open up. There's so many benefits of a twist, honestly. And come back to center. Awesome. I see someone doing the yoga hug. So we're going to copy you. Inhale, take your arms out wide. Right and left. Good. Cross one arm over the other. Doesn't matter which one. Inhale. Feel your ribs. They're expanding. Exhale, let it go. Open up your arms wide like you see the person that you love and you want to give them a big, big, big hug. And take the other arm on top. Give yourself a squeeze, a big squeeze. This room is, and online, it's like we've got this big hug that's taking up the universe. And then let it go. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. We will move on now. You are in for a big treat. Dr. Belkin is going to introduce Dr. Cody.
Okay, so moving on. Again, I have the honor of introducing Dr. Jeannie Cody. She is a lifelong resident of the state of Michigan, completed her undergraduate studies at Michigan State University with a degree in nutritional science. She then went to Wayne State University Medical School in Detroit, followed by her neurology residency at the University of Michigan, serving as a chief resident. She then completed her fellowship at the University of Michigan in multiple sclerosis and neuroimmunology, and then spent several years caring for patients with MS at the University of Michigan. She has since transitioned to another great center, Memorial Healthcare in Owasso in 2019. She has a special interest in the planning, prenatal, and postnatal care for women with MS and lifestyle and weight management related to neurological diseases. She holds a certification in medical acupuncture and is board certified in neurology and is a member of the American Academy of Neurology, American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology, as well as Academy of Pain Research. She is board certified in weight loss management from the ABOM. So it's an honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Jeannie Cody.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here tonight and so excited to get to give this topic. Dave and Navy, is this a good volume? Excellent. Okay. So when Mindy reached out, she had given me a couple topic ideas, and instantly, I'm like, of course, let's talk about sex. It's like one of the best songs ever made. And we never talk about it in clinic. We all have had it at some point, most of us, or think about it, or read books about it. Fourth wing, anybody? And at some point, for most of us, we may have struggles with sex or symptoms around that. And in particular, both with non-neurological and neurological symptoms or patients with neurological disease. But it's something that we often don't talk about. We certainly don't get much training in medical school, maybe a couple of days. So it's something that if you're challenged by it, you may even bring it to your doctors if you're so bold to do so. And they may not always be the first best resource to help you. They may want to, but they may not know how to help you. And that's a tricky spot to be in because these are the people that are there to help you. And when I spoke about this topic, I was often met with either, aren't you going to be embarrassed? That's such an embarrassing topic. How are you going to talk about this? Which I thought was so perplexing because if you know me, I love to talk. TMI, like I always overshare in clinic. I ask way too many personal things that are not pertinent but are interesting to me that I want to know about. So I was not worried about being embarrassed. But most people ask me, would I be embarrassed by this or find this embarrassing? But that was not a concern of mine. A few people, though, thought it was a great idea. But definitely, I could see interest, and definitely a lot of people, more than ever, took flyers. Like, flyers come for talks, and sometimes they get touched. This was the one that every person took the flyer every time. And that I knew said something, because those flyers went. I saw them peeking out of the bags. Even if someone didn't ask me about it, I saw that a flyer was taken for this one. But through my research, I also had my own kind of journey preparing for this talk, because it taught me a lot about myself and how I don't do a good job asking. So I'm readily putting myself out there as someone who has not done a good job with my own patients, asking enough and managing enough. I learned a lot, so I'm happy to share with you the things that I learned. But I will also tell you that in my research, a lot of what I learned did not come from MS specialists. It came from other disciplines who have done a lot of the research and have paved the way. So I also think it showed me that we have a lot of work to do in the MS community to really be more proactive, doing more studies, getting more treatments, understanding this more, and talking about it more. You know, I think we could do better, and it certainly opened up my eyes. And I look forward to talking about this more with my patients, tackling it more, and seeing, you know, what more we can do. So if you have not picked up on it, I do like to talk. Haven't even gotten to my first slide yet, but we will get started. All right, top button. So, polling, a couple of questions. So, first question. Who in here has ever, and this is for MS and non-MS people, just people in general, who in here has ever had a doctor ask them about sexual function? All right, so I see at the tables maybe 1 or 2 hands per table, right? So probably less than 50%. Who in here had to be the one to ask their doctor about their sexual concerns? So maybe they had concerns, but they had to be the one to really raise it to the attention. So I see some scattered hands. Ha. And who, after they were discussing these issues with their doctor, felt let down by the encounter? Who felt like they got a good solution to their encounter? Who felt like it was really managed well? I see 3 hands, 4 hands maybe, and I see hands that went up for being let down. Okay. What I don't see is a sea of hands who discussed their problems and a sea of hands who felt like they were well managed. But the statistics would say that a fair amount of us are not 100% rocking it with our sexual health. And for a variety of reasons. And it's complicated why we don't talk about it. And it's complicated why it happens. But I think that is in part why I was so excited to approach giving this talk. So first thing I wanted to go over is intimacy. Because I led with sex, but really intimacy, right? So intimacy, what is that? It's a feeling of a deep, meaningful connection. And it's where individuals can be authentic and vulnerable without a fear of judgment. It creates a bond that feels safe and supportive and secure. So, how you build intimacy? You build it through vulnerability, open communication and shared experiences. And I bolded the open communication because that is really that core theme that's going to run throughout this topic. Communication is of utmost importance when you're trying to navigate issues around sexual dysfunction and how to plan for it, how to talk about it, how to diagnose it. And these are hard things to talk about for a lot of people, but I think the communication is really critical here. And when you can't talk about what you're feeling, how you're feeling, what your body is feeling, it is much harder to successfully navigate some of these roadblocks. Because a lot of it can be navigated, but I think it starts with knowing your body and knowing your feelings and having a safe space to have that communication. You can have intimacy, or ways to build it, I will say. So if you have a partner and you're not feeling so intimate with them, because intimacy is not sex. There may be sex with someone that you are feeling intimate with, but they are not synonymous. So ways to build that intimacy, if you feel like through the course of having MS or just in general, right? Like you are stressed, you are busy, you are running a household, you are doing all of the things, and you are feeling disconnected from your partner. You are feeling disconnected from that support. Or maybe you are feeling like a burden to the person that is helping to care for you, and you are losing that partner-partner relationship, and it's starting to feel more like a caregiver, burden relationship, whether both parties feel like that way or just one side of that party. But you want to work on that intimacy, ways to build that intimacy. I think you can let that person back into your world more. So sometimes we get so focused on ourselves, or we sort of wall ourselves off. We don't always work to let someone else in. So making an effort to let that person into your world. Being intentional and dedicating more time to that other person in your life to build that intimacy. Trying to care about what the other person likes. So my husband likes things that are not of my interest. And I have to remind myself, try to ask about the things he is interested in. So I try. He had me watching like the Formula One, but like the French racing league of race cars, and I tried. Sharing values, discussing spiritual beliefs, and exploring physical boundaries, but at a pace that you're comfortable with. I think sometimes, if every time you try to snuggle, it turns into, one partner wanting more than the other partner wants, that can lead to one partner being like, I don't even want to initiate snuggling because it's going to turn into a fight, because it's going to, one's going to want it to go one way. I'm not going to want it to. So I'm going to cut that off at the head, and we're not even going to engage. So I think if you have that open communication and set boundaries of like, this is just snuggling, it is not going to turn into more, and set that communication, it allows snuggling to be snuggling, or holding hands to be holding hands. Sometimes building up to bigger physical intimacies really does start with smaller, and sometimes you really do have to take those baby steps. But I think being intentional in setting those baby steps goes a long way in rebuilding that intimacy. So examples for people who forget what it was like building intimacy when you were like 10 and just starting. So the small things. So cuddling, hugging, kissing, holding hands, massage. Sexual intercourse is when you were older, not 10, obviously. But some ideas of ways to be both intimate, physically and non-physically. So, moving on. Now we'll get into some fun things. So the neurology of sex. And I found this really cute graphic of a brain and a heart that I thought was really good. So this is really, really kind of fun to think about because so much is involved. It is really a complex interplay of central nervous system, peripheral neural structures. So you have your brain, your spinal cord, but you also have your peripheral nerves. So you have your motor nerves, your sensory nerves, your autonomics. And then you have your higher cortical processing. So that's like your judgment, initiation, decision-making, right? All of it is all involved in sex. So this is not all of it, but these are just kind of some fun areas that I pulled out to highlight as parts of the brain that are involved in sex. So hypothalamus, might have heard of it. It helps regulate our sexual behavior. It has a role in the autonomics, so that's things like our pulse rate and our blood pressure during sex. It produces hormones that affect our sexual function. Thalamus is a relay station between our spinal cord and higher levels of the brain. So it's sort of this like erotic relay station, you can think of as. The amygdala, that gives us emotional significance to stimulation and modulates our sex drive. Hippocampus, that got cut off, but that is memory. Like, oh, I remember that partner was great, or that partner was terrible, or that partner, smelled. So maybe skip that one. The orbitofrontal cortex is decision-making and initiation and impulse control. So say you're on a medicine that turns up impulsive behavior, right? Maybe now you're making decisions that you wouldn't normally make, like gambling or overconsumption or, hypersexuality. Or say there's a scar there that changes and decreases activity in that region of the brain so that you are feeling less sexual than before, right? Each of these parts of the brain has a job to do. And an MS scar or a medication can really regulate or change how these regions are all interacting and can have a downstream effect on sexual behavior. So, all of these parts all work together, but damage or medications or even stress, exercise, all influences how these work. The insula, so that allows for that self-awareness of bodily sensations. Cerebellum helps with that like fine motor control or coordination. Parietal lobe, sensation processing. So all of these regions play a part just in the brain. And the brainstem, right? So brainstem, spinal cord. Brainstem is really connecting brain to spinal cord, but it plays a part in autonomic functions related to erection and ejaculation. And this just lists some of those centers that are involved. But if you have scars there, that may impair that ability to get an erection or get an ejaculation. And then midbrain has a big part with sexual drive and pleasure. So again, scars there, damage there can change some of those feelings for a person, right? So a partner may take it as they don't like me anymore. They're not interested. What am I doing? It may have nothing to do with them. It may have everything to do with the scar that is sitting in that region. And maybe that scar is secondarily causing spasticity or painful pins and needles so that when that leg gets touched, it spasms and it burns. And that makes things so much harder now to figure out. Not impossible, but harder. So, these things are not always so simple, but not impossible. So spinal cord plays a part with tumescence. I think that's one of my new favorite words, by the way. Tumescence, lubrication, perineum contractions, and it's a relay station between the brain and the genital nerves. And there's a couple different ways that people can get erections. So the first is erections by touch. So for this, the sensory nerves in the genitals will transmit signals to the spinal cord upon physical stimulation. And this will activate neurons in the lower spinal cord. And the sacral parasympathetic nerves will then cause some changes in the body that ultimately draw blood into structures, either the penis or the clitoris, that lead them to engorge or get larger. So either an erection or the clitoris will get a little larger. And then with that, you'll get lubrication, either prostatic fluids or vaginal lubrication. So this is like a reflex arc. So this doesn't actually go up into the brain. This stays completely lower level. But you can also get an erection by thought, right? So watching a movie, thinking about something, that's a different way that you can connect and get an erection. So this uses a different pathway. This is where thoughts in the brain travel down through that cord to the thoracolumbar plexus. So with this one, that ability to have feeling kind of around that kind of lower pelvis area, if you have preserved feeling down here, you are more likely to be able to still maintain an ability to get an erection by thought. So if you were someone who had a profound injury in that area, that might be harder to achieve. Not impossible, might be harder. Now, as far as orgasm and ejaculation, right, because each part is something different. A lot of neurology in all of this. That's why the brain's the best. It just does all kinds of fun things. But basically, with an orgasm, you're having activation of multiple pleasure centers in the brain, but you're also deactivating certain centers. So you're like letting yourself go, quite literally. You are turning off certain centers, turning on certain centers, and letting your brain go. This picture here is a graphic that shows areas of activity during orgasm. And so you will see quite literally multiple regions that light up during. It's not localized to one small region. It is a vast network of activity during orgasm, which is pretty awesome. So sometimes people will say, if I have no genital sensation, can I orgasm? Orgasm is a brain thing. So yes, you may not have good sensation in the genital region, but the orgasm itself is an inside process. So not being able to have sensation generally doesn't mean that a brain can't orgasm. It may mean it's trickier to figure out how to trigger it, but it doesn't mean it can't happen because it is an inside process, not an outside process. So just want to put that out there. So as far as ejaculation, for that, you have a different part of the neuronal pathway. You have a segment in the spinal cord that has some special neurons called the spinal ejaculation center, which project to neurons that initiate expulsion. So those are what complete that. So sexual dysfunction from MS, it gets divided into 3 categories. So you have, let me see if this, okay. So you have primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary, so these pictures here are going to reflect your primary, which is dysfunction because of damage directly to centers that had jobs related to like sexual regions in the nervous system. Secondary is because of physical changes from MS. This was my example of like spasticity, right? Sometimes this muscle can get really tight, bring the legs really close, and that could make things harder. And then third is more cultural, psychosocial, like some of those challenges that can then influence things. So primary dysfunction, so that, like I said, is those changes from direct damage to the nervous system itself. That can cause things like a partial or total loss of libido, unpleasant or decreased sensation in genital tissue, decreased lubrication or erectile capacity, or decreased frequency and or intensity of orgasm. Secondary dysfunction from MS-related changes. So that might be bladder or bowel, fatigue, weakness, numbness. This is a partial list, right? MS can do a bajillion things, but this is just some of the more, common ones that people would tell me about. And then tertiary, also a big one. Probably the one that I am least an expert in, but I have a table of brilliant people who will be joining me that are experts in a lot of this stuff. But things like this, right? So less self-esteem, anxiety about body changes, beliefs about what it means to be sexual or like sexy in society. So how do we know that someone might be having sexual dysfunction? One is just because we know that this is out there. We know that people have done studies that tell us this is out there. So even if people don't talk about it, I'm going to presume a chunk of the room is having it because statistically a chunk of the room should be having it. Now in clinic, usually what happens is we finish the visit and then as I'm walking out the door, it goes, by the way, as I'm like leaving, and I'm like, what? Yes. And that's the universal signal for erectile dysfunction. But sometimes the patients will be more upfront about it. Or their partner might. Their partner who brings them to the appointment or is with them may have questions or concerns. There are screening questionnaires, and I brought you all one. Ooh, actually, hey Teresa, under the table in my backpack, if you open it up, there's a thick clipped chunk of questionnaires. Would you mind passing those out? Thank you. Okay, I brought. Exhibit hall for virtual viewers. Thank you. They're also in the exhibit hall for virtual viewers. So I brought you all one so that if you do feel like this would be hard to talk about, all you have to do is take this self-assessment and just hand it to a provider. They can read it, they will understand what it is you're bringing to them, and it is a perfect starting point for having a conversation. And I have a copy to show you online too. So this is what's getting passed out to you guys. So this is called the MSISQ-19. So this is the MS Intimacy and Sexuality Questionnaire. It's self-administered, and it really helps evaluate for contributors interfering with sexual activity or satisfaction. The limitation to this, or just the thing to know, is there is no established rule of what is a good score or a bad score or what's a problem. It is a problem if you say it is a problem. So if it's a problem for you, it is a problem. If you're cool with where you're at or not having issues, that's fine. But I think this is a great way of documenting kind of where you are and covering some more sensitive topics in a way that might be comfortable for someone who has a hard time talking about some of these things or bringing them up. And it's a way to keep track. So this is free online. It'll be in the virtual exhibit hall. But what you'll see is it's just a series of 19 questions. And at the bottom, there's a scoring to let you know what these questions are really getting at. And it's really lumped into looking at primary, secondary, and tertiary dysfunction. So it's really screening for those 3 different categories. And really anyone scoring 4s and 5s, which is almost always and always, those are categories that would indicate you're a little more distressed by that symptom, and maybe that is worth discussing. But again, it only matters if it matters to you. This I included on here just because this is another validated questionnaire. This is not one that's easy necessarily to self-administer and score because it's a super convoluted system. But just for you guys to know, like, what exists in the space that asks MS patients about sex, this is like one of the only other ones that's really existing. And it includes like 8 questions. So a lot of our questionnaires really don't include a lot about sex. We also have a research scoring exam, but the sex question is optional. Like, it's not a mandatory part of our scoring system. It's an optional question that you don't have to ask or answer. And usually in the clinical trials, they don't even factor that score in. So I just say that because even like for our assessments, it's such a small piece of everything when it's really such a big piece of our lives, right? Like it's a big part of our lives, but in our clinical assessments, it plays such a small part of that representation. So treatments. So first thing you want to do if the issue is low libido or low sex drive, that's what libido is first just look at the medicines. And fix what might be making things harder. Because there's a good chance that your well-intended healthcare providers are making this harder for you. Very good chance. So, most common meds to know about that are probably making your libido worse. Narcotics. So after a couple months of like narcotics, testicles get smaller, libido gets lower. So that's a common one. Antidepressants and antipsychotics. I am not advocating that you stop them, but I do think you should know the medications and their side effects. Because if you are taking a lot of guilt about how you are feeling with your libido, I don't think that's fair. I think these medications can have a huge impact. So knowing that and discussing with your provider, are there other options? Are there dose adjustments? Can we work on this? Antispastic. How many people in this room are on baclofen, tizanidine, or some antispastic, right? A lot. Those actually can decrease libido. So that is kind of a catch-22, right? It might treat the spasticity, but it might also be making the libido worse. Blood pressure medicines, bladder medicines, again, might make it easier to prepare for the moment, but maybe making the libido worse. And then anti-seizure medicines, which we use a lot for pain. So a lot of those pain medications can blunt libido. Anybody in here surprised by this list? If you are, make a sound. So other things, you want to stop smoking. I know you hear it all the time, but we're talking about libido now. So if that is important, stop smoking. Alcohol, in moderation, but if your moderation is a lot of moderation, bring it down. Improve diet. Yes, but side note, erection, for an erection to happen, neurologically, all those nerves make changes to bring blood flow into the penis or into the clitoris. If you have bad circulation, you cannot get blood flow into your penis. If you have bad cardiovascular disease, if you have heart disease, if you have bad diabetes, those are things that cause bad circulation. It is really hard to get blood flow into the penis. So if someone comes in and has erectile dysfunction in addition to neurologic diseases, my first thought is always, do they have microvascular disease? Do they have heart disease? So the whole improving diet and kind of focusing on this, the reason I have a little asterisk there is just a side plug of like, you want to also think about the fact that like this is also a blood flow issue. So you want to make sure that you are living a lifestyle that promotes like a heart healthy, neurologically healthy, diet and lifestyle, because really the goal is also to keep that blood flow able to get into the penis. So resistance exercises, we want to build muscle. That's going to help you build testosterone. That's going to help with that libido. Bupropion. So this is an antidepressant that can actually help bolster libido and is sometimes partnered with antidepressants. If those are sort of blocking libido, sometimes this will be given with it to help counteract that effect. If you're premenopausal, and I say premenopausal because that was the group that was studied in the clinical trials, there are 2 medicines for women that are approved for hypoarousal sexual dysfunction, HSDD. I have slides. Fleabinserin and bremelanotide. And fun fact, a bajillion years ago, I was actually part of the clinical trials for fleabinserin. But at the time, it was not known exactly how that was going to end up, but it was in the very early stages. And it was a very weird trial, but I got a free MRI and $50. And I was a medical student, so that was, I wanted the $50. And if postmenopausal, sometimes HRT based on the case, or testosterone replacement in some cases. And then lastly, therapy. So pelvic floor therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. There are many forms of therapy, but sometimes hugely important in part for the libido. So fleabinserin, this is the little pink pill. So for hypoactive sexual desire disorder in premenopausal women. So this was approved about 10 years ago. How many people have heard of this medication? I see one hand. Any other hands? Been on the market 10 years, people, right? Yeah, most people have not heard of this medicine. It was not, there was a ton of roadblocks like put in the way of this medication. And there was a question of like, for as easy it is for a bajillion Viagras to be on the market, like what was the conspiracy with making it so hard for women to have a medication come to the market? But, so non-hormonal, has effects on some of the different neurotransmitters, and it may help restore a natural desire by helping kind of shut off mental distractions. Because you know how we talked about with orgasm, it's both like activating but also deactivating, like turning off the things that are keeping you away from that pleasure, right? This is sort of helping you shut out the noise and like shutting out some of those distractions, right? When you're like a super busy person and you just have like the weight of the world on your shoulders, it's like, I don't have time for one more thing. I don't have one more spoon left. This might help you let some of that go and maybe let you find a little bit of that desire again. Side effects, kind of like brain fog, lightheadedness kind of stuff. I think you're going to find that possible with any centrally acting medicine. So if it's there, that could be a reason that someone might stop it. If it has not helped by week 12, unlikely to help and would be stopped. Now, bremelanotide, this is also for the same reason, but used a little differently. Approved in 2019. This is a shot taken 45 minutes before sex. You get 8 doses a month. It works on a part of the brain. It's an MC, it's a melanocortin receptor agonist. And it is interesting because there's already a medicine that's a melanocortin agonist on the market that is approved for genetic forms of obesity and hyperphagia. And this is kind of a cousin to that. And so I looked to see if they'd ever considered this for weight loss. And they actually did. They did a small clinical trial looking at this and partnered it with a weight loss medicine, and it actually worked really well. So it's interesting because a lot of these medications all kind of work in the brain around kind of modifying behaviors. But yeah, so this one is interesting. You get 8 doses a month. It is taken about 45 minutes before sex. It can last for up to a couple of days in the body, and can affect sexual function and mood. Site reactions, nausea, skin darkening are potential side effects. You don't see a lot of skin darkening with the daily version, which is the weight loss version. So it's hard for me to say how common skin darkening is with the as needed version. But in general, these medicines are not widely prescribed. There has been very little uptake of these medications. So if the issue is more that there's unpleasant or decreased sensations, one thing that you'll see written a lot is body mapping. So body mapping is this concept of really taking the time to learn your body, your new body. So taking time to really figure out what are the places that are comfortable to touch, not comfortable, what intensity, what speed, and really learn what you like and what you don't like for your partner to then be able to get that information from you. Sometimes topical or topical ointments or lubricants, I'm going. Pain medications, pelvic floor therapy, CBT, stimulators or other oral aids. If you're using toys, though, you want to make sure you have good hygiene or that you're really watching the skin integrity. If someone can't feel and you're using a toy, you want to make sure you're not causing any trauma. If someone has decreased lubrication or ability to get an erection, so for the decreased lubrication, you have a couple of options. Vaginal moisturizers are interesting. It's like a hydrogel that clings to the vaginal wall and will last for a few days. That's different than lubricants, which are like for as needed use. If you're using a lubricant, usually water or silicone is going to be preferable. Oil-based can be irritating and can break down latex. So if you have latex toys that you invested in, they're expensive and you may not want to wreck those with an oil-based lube. And then for boys, erectile treatments. So the top row is your usual, those like Viagra, Cialis, Levitra. There's penile injection therapy, so this can work really well. It's a really tiny needle. And injected into the side of the penis. It can improve blood flow and help with erection. Vacuum devices with a tension ring, but you can't use those more than 30 minutes or not good. And then penis implant, which we do at Memorial. If you did not know Stacy, we do that at Memorial. Stacy's my manager. But make sure it's MRI compatible. So this is a picture of what the injectable looks like. I have one patient who does this, and it is working well for him. So really tiny, relaxes those smooth muscles and opens the blood vessels and helps an erection form. The implant, though, is my favorite. This thing is great. So outpatient, couple of hours, over 90% satisfaction rate. That's amazing statistics. So in the scrotum, there's like an activation switch that you can activate. So there's a water reservoir up here. It basically fills these chambers for like as long as you want it filled. And then you can reactivate that switch to deflate it. So works great, and it's on demand as long as you want it. And it's outpatient. Yeah, right? You can clap for that. I think this is awesome. So, one thing to say, they did a trial looking at time to orgasm in people with neurologic dysfunction. And even with neurologic injury and genital numbness, orgasm happened, but on average took up to 26 minutes. It is not that it can't happen, but if you stop at 8 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes because you think it's not going to happen, you may not get there. So the key takeaway for me from this is persistence, right? You have to be okay with sometimes trying longer than maybe you are wanting it to take. But if it's important and you want to work at it, that's okay. In this trial, it took up to 26 minutes, but it happened. And I think knowing that helps, because if you're like, 15 minutes, there's no point, maybe 9 more minutes would have got you there, or 11. 11, yeah. I'm not mathing today. Okay. How many more minutes do I get, or am I done? We'll put it in the panel, because the prosthetic picture was, well, I'll pull them up as we get questions, because the prosthetic was my favorite picture. And then I have notable mentions that I'll slip into the panel. Okay. Like I said, I could talk forever. Okay. I'll save the rest for the panel. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I want to introduce to you 2 members of our panel. Dr. Cody, of course, you've met and have heard from, and she has done amazing and is going to keep going with her discussion. I have to tell you that when I asked her the excitement, I could feel it coming through the phone. And then there was like this excitement for the next few days. She was already working on her presentation, and that was way back. That was way back, several months ago. All right. Allison Bell is a highly skilled physical therapist with over 12 years of experience. Thank you, Allison. She specializes in the evaluation and treatment of orthopedic and pelvic floor conditions. Holding a doctorate of physical therapy, Dr. Bell is committed to providing compassionate and individualized care to patients with a wide range of pelvic health concerns, including bladder and bowel dysfunction, pelvic pain, gender affirmation, diastasis recti, and pregnancy and postpartum recovery. In addition, she has a special interest in helping those with neurological conditions navigate their bladder and bowel health. With a deep understanding of the intricate anatomy and biomechanics of the pelvic floor, Dr. Bell utilizes evidence-based therapeutic techniques, including manual therapy, biofeedback, dry needling, myofascial cupping, and specialized exercise regimens to address the root causes of pelvic dysfunction. Dr. Bell places a strong emphasis on education, empowering patients with the tools and knowledge they need to take an active role in their recovery and overall health. Thank you, Allison, for being an integral member of our panelist discussion team. And Amy Rad. So excited to have Amy here. Amy agreed to help facilitate and lead this discussion. She is a clinical social worker and AASECT certified sex therapist at the Center for Sexual Health. She is also a counselor at the Michigan Medicine Center for Vulvar Diseases in the Department of Gynecology and a clinical supervisor within the Department of Social Work. Amy specializes in women's health, sexual health and intimacy, intimate relationship distress, and trauma recovery. In her spare time, she's either reading or trying to keep up with her 2 sons. Thank you, the 3 of you. I'm taking no more time because this is going to be a very, very, what should we call this? What kind of discussion is this going to be? Informative. Oh, really? Is that it? That's all you have to say about this?
It's going to be really fun.
Okay.
It's going to be awesome.
Okay, it's going to be really fun.
Okay, and I'm going to start out by being a bit of a dork. So, a lot of parents, I think, when their kid comes home and says, "Mom, Dad, I want to be a sex therapist," they'd be kind of terrified by that statement. But my parents weren't. They have been the most amazing, supportive people ever, and they're watching right now. So, hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. So, and I think what's really cool is that my father worked in healthcare, and so talking about health was always something that we had at the forefront of our household. You know, we'd have family dinners, and matters of physical well-being and emotional and mental well-being were prioritized. And that included sexual health, because sexual health is a very important part of your overall health. Every single person in this room has the capacity to experience sexuality. And if we pretend that that's not the case, then honestly, it's a bit naive, and we're going to do a lot of harm and damage to not only ourselves, but to our kids who are growing up, learning about their bodies. And none of us want to do that. So it is my goal in life to empower people to feel good about their sexual selves so that they can make the right choices for their body and feel like they are in charge of their health, they are in charge of their lives. And so I am so excited that Mindy was kind enough to invite me to moderate this panel of questions. So without further ado, let's get started. So, Dr. Cody, how does MS typically affect sexual function? Actually, you know what? You just discussed that. That was fantastic. So in that case, Allison, what role can pelvic floor therapy play in managing MS-related sexual dysfunction?
Well, the pelvic floor, in my opinion, is the root of all health, right? So we poop, we pee, we want to have sexual intercourse. And if we can't do those things, we aren't living our best self. So the pelvic floor contracts to help stop and store urine and stool, and it relaxes to help release urine and stool, but it's also that contraction helps facilitate orgasm and successful orgasm. If you're pooping your pants, peeing your pants, not pooping, not peeing, or you have pain with penetration or achieving erection, you're not going to want to have sex. So the pelvic floor is kind of where that all happens. And my job is to help you understand where that is. We don't know where it is. We understand where our bicep is, but we don't understand where our pelvic floor is because it kind of lives inside us.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Cody, I'm dying to know, what else did you want to say in that presentation? You were doing so great talking about, I'm just going to dive into the prosthesis because I think that that's really important to know. So can you tell us a little bit about the prosthesis?
So I will say, initially in my search, Safe Search was on in my computer because my children also use that computer.
Yeah,
so first I had to navigate that. But so there was an evolution in the prosthetics. So there are versions that were older that were like these malleable rod versions. And so patients might be familiar with those too. So it's not just the water pumps. I like the water pumps, but there are other prosthetic styles out there. But what I like about the water pump is that when it is deflated, it is fully deflated and no one would know that you have anything surgically implanted. Malleable rods are always semi-rigid. And so to me, I think that also comes with a risk of trauma if something is semi-rigid and implanted into soft tissue. And it's slightly visible to the exterior world as well if you have that all the time. But so these prosthetics are low risk, fast outpatient, and generally really no signs that anything's been done and can last a very long time. And they're on demand as long as you need it, always ready to go. And so implant can be done in people, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So there is not necessarily an age cutoff for this. So, and it can be triggered by a partner. So say you don't have the dexterity to activate this. If you have a partner that you trust, they could activate this for you. And that still allows you that time together. I think these are great. I don't know. I actually have the perfect patient for one, and I cannot wait till I see him next, because as soon as I saw it, he was my first thought. And my husband also treats him, and I told him, and he's like, "Oh my God, he'd be great for this." And I was like, "I know, I can't wait." So
I'm so excited for
that
your
was part of my
patient.
excitement. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So I will say I have also had many patients who have had prosthetics, or they've had implants for penile to enhance erections, and people are very, very happy with them. I will say I've noticed more partnered pain with the rods than with the water-filled tubes. So that's something to be cognizant of what's the experience going to be like for your partner, because you don't want to have an implant done and then unintentionally create a new form of sexual dysfunction. So make sure you're asking your provider a lot of questions about not only how is this going to impact my sexual function, but any potential partner sexual function too. Yeah. So, okay, I dropped my sheet. Excuse me. How frequently, Dr. Cody, would you say issues of sexual health come up in your clinic?
So that is partially my fault because I was not asking. So patient initiated, infrequent. Yeah.
I commend you for making changes to that. How about you, Allison? How frequently are you talking about sexual health concerns in your clinic?
Every day with every patient. And honestly, any patient who walks in our clinic door that's not my patient, I will probably talk to you about it too. Or your bowel health or bladder health or whatever. So yeah, I talk about it a lot. You might come in to me to talk about urinary problems, and I'm going to ask you about sex. You might come in for constipation, and I'm going to talk to you about sex. And you're going to say, well, I'm only here because I'm not pooping. I'm like, cool, that's a problem too. So it's all related. I talk about it all day, every day, to people's horror probably, but patients come in all the time and say, ugh, you don't want to know this. I'm like,
oh, yes, we do.
Tell me it.
Yes,
Tell
we
me
do.
it. There's no secrets. There's no shame. I hear it all. You are not alone.
I feel the exact same way. But I mean, I'm a sex therapist, so people know that they're going to be talking about sex when they talk to me. But yet some people are still, very reserved, which is understandable. It's a very challenging topic to discuss. But I'm very vocal about what I do because I think it's, again, important to normalize this very valid part of the human experience. And so, I'll be, talking to a stranger and they'll ask me what I do and I tell them, and then I'm there for 20 minutes talking about all of their sexual health experiences, and that is a consistent experience. And I bet that's what you have with your personal life too.
Yep, sure do.
Yeah, so
it's fine.
And people are so eager to get answers, which I think is just such a call to us as providers to be more proactive when talking about sexual health concerns, and then also a call to our patients to know, this is okay to talk about. We want you to talk about this. Even if a provider may be uncomfortable themselves, it's okay to have your provider be uncomfortable. That's on them, okay? Because honestly, some providers are uncomfortable. But again, that's on them. It's important to ask about your health and get appropriate, healthy responses.
Can you show slide 39 of my talk? And can you comment on, if you have an opinion about it, the intensity?
I've never seen it. From looking at the picture, it looks like an internal electrical stim device.
Yeah. So the intensity it's FDA approved, and it inflates and strengthens the Kegels. And it's also a clitoral stimulator. So it's FDA approved for improving orgasms, but also strengthens the pelvic floor at the same time. But it's FDA approved device and around $220. So I was hoping to show the picture in case anybody was interested.
So I a lot of pelvic floor therapists will probably gasp when I say this. I probably train Kegels less than any other physical therapist ever, especially specifically in the MS population. If we already are having spasticity, especially spasticity in the pelvis, you are likely having spasticity in your pelvic floor. That might present as what we think is weakness. I'm leaking urine or stool, therefore my muscles are weak because they can't hold it in. Where really they're tight and they're spastic and now they're tired. And now that fatigue has caused that release of our contents. So all of that to say, cool, but maybe we don't need to overtrain a muscle that's already really tight. Again, unlike our bicep, we can see that our bicep is like this. We can see that our legs are scissoring together. We can't necessarily see what we're doing with our pelvic floor. So I would caution against using an internal stim device unless you've seen someone who specifically is like, no, you have a ton of weakness. I do stim on my MS patients because there's that feedback loop that's missing. Some of that, like those signals from the brain aren't hitting the muscles in the pelvic floor, and we need that sensory awareness to better know where those muscles are and how to activate them. But that would be my my only caution is, unless you know that your pelvic floor is specifically weak or you don't know how to activate it, overdoing Kegels can be a bad thing.
Are there surrogate muscles that you can use to gauge that? Because we can usually use neck flexion to gauge respiratory weakness. So if someone has normal tone in their lower extremities, can you use that as a gauge? Or how do you gauge that? Because if the rest of the body is normal tone, would you presume that there's pelvic floor spasticity?
Hypertonicity versus spasticity. So someone consciously holding their muscles tight versus or consciously holding their muscles tight. So I tell people all the time, if you're sitting here and talking to me, are you consciously sucking in your stomach? Are you consciously squeezing your glutes? Are you tensing your jaw? Are you holding tension somewhere else in your body? And if the answer to that is yes, you're likely also holding tension in your pelvic floor that you don't need to. So let it go. A physical therapist somewhere once probably told you, if you have back pain, keep your core tight. And you internalized that as, I'm going to keep my core tight all day long. That's not how the core is intended to be used. That's not how the pelvic floor is intended to be used. So maybe that, I don't know if there's as much researched validity behind that. There is research that tension in your jaw core produces tension in your pelvic floor, but I don't know.
There's so much about pelvic floor physical therapy that is just amazing and so far beyond my level of conception. And a sex therapist absolutely love pelvic floor physical therapists. We think that they are wizards because they really do magic. If your provider recommends you check out pelvic floor physical therapy, please do it. It's wonderful. As a sex therapist, as someone who works in a lot of vulvar disease and vulvar pain conditions, and sees a lot of issues with penetration or confidence issues with how your body's working, please go see your pelvic floor physical therapist. Okay, so I'm going to answer a question that is directed toward me, and because it's one of my absolute favorite subjects to talk about, and it's probably the most common topic that I discuss with people, and I love it because as soon as I'm done, I'm going to be able to look across the room and people are going to be nodding, yes, that makes so much sense. And that is the issue of sexual desire. Dr. Cody already alluded to this is a very big concern for a lot of individuals impacted by MS. It's a very big issue impacted by everyone because I gotta tell you, Disney and porn lie to us. Shocking, I know, right? But not every romantic relationship that we have is going to be perfect. Not every sexual encounter we have is going to be amazing. It's not going to go how you think it's going to go most of the time. And that is reality. And a lot of us have this idea in our mind that we should really want sex all of the time, or we should really want sex when it's date night with our partner, or when they look really attractive, or whenever it is in your mind that you think you're supposed to experience it. Well, I gotta tell you, the term sex drive isn't actually accurate. So it's made its way into our vocabulary, and it's really good at helping us understand this natural experience of wanting sex. However, it's not technically accurate. And Dr. Cody, please correct me on my neurobiology and my terminology if I get this wrong. However, my understanding is that a drive is a mechanism which is basically meant to keep an animal alive, like hunger and thirst. We have a drive to attend to these needs, and if we don't have them, we're going to experience tissue damage and we could die. But nobody has ever died because they didn't have sex. Sex is a want. It is not a need. Therefore, it's not a drive. And I tell people that just to give some relief, like, oh, wait a second. You mean it's normal if I don't have this pull to pursue sexual activity? As a matter of fact, a lack of interest in sex can often be a sign of good judgment. Okay? So it's normal. And so, well, why do we want to have sex then? Well, we consider it an incentive motivation system in the brain that says, hey, if the context is right, this could be a fun experience to have. Well, then what controls that desire? That's a two-part system in the brain because the brain really likes balance. Okay, it's called the dual control model of sexual response. There's the excitatory system and then the inhibitory system. But basically, it's like a car. You've got an accelerator, and then you've got the brakes. The accelerator is pressed by all of the reasons that you want to have sex. Your partner looks super sexy. You want to have an orgasm. You got really into book talk and are reading all of these romantasy novels, and all of a sudden, like, all the erotica is everywhere all of the time. I have fun facts about erotica and its impact on female arousal, but I digress. Maybe you want to get pregnant, or maybe you were just exposed to some sexually relevant stimuli. So if we talk about sex, it's normal for our bodies to get a physiological reaction. So that could have happened. So that's going to press the accelerator. But then on the other hand, we have the brakes. The brakes are all of the reasons why we don't want to have sex. And like Dr. Cody said, maybe you're super stressed out. Maybe your partner was a jerk that morning, or they have really bad breath, or you have 8 different doctors to go to and you can't remember which one is which. Okay? So if you think about all the things that are overwhelming, or maybe you're having a really challenging day with your body, or maybe you're in pain. I got to tell you, pain is something I hear about a lot from a lot of folks. Those things are going to slam down on your sexual brakes. And if we think about a car, is a car broken if the brakes are pressed all the way down and it doesn't go when you hit the accelerator? No, just like no one is broken if their sexual brakes are pressed down and shockingly, they don't have any desire to pursue sexual activity. That is a normal response. I'm seeing a few nods. So if you're experiencing challenges with your desire, you got to check in and be like, what's going on with my accelerator and my brakes? And so that's one of the very first things that I talk about with patients. And I really encourage you to consider for yourself as you're exploring how MS is impacting your sexual function or that of the people you care about. Okay, now I'm done with my little monologue there. Thank you for letting me say that. It's one of my favorite little speeches to give. So, okay, Allison, how do you assess and tailor treatment plans for sexual pain disorders in MS patients?
Okay, so shocking, but the MS patient is the same as any other patient walking the door. Your anatomy is the same. How your muscles work might be a little bit different, but how I assess you is going to be the same. So if you've ever been to any other physical therapy or occupational therapy, we look at how you move. I'm going to ask you tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of questions. You get an hour with me specifically. So we're going to use that time. I'm going to ask you lots of questions. I'm going to get to know your story. I'm going to look at how you move. I'm going to look at what your muscles do from an external perspective. And then we will do an internal exam for people who have vaginas. That means we're going to do an intravaginal exam, kind of similar to the exam that you would get at a gynecologist's office. However, there's no stirrups, there's no speculum, there are no scary tools. It is a gloved, fingered exam and the goal of that isn't to be super invasive and icky. The goal of that is to feel the muscles that live inside your body and see what they're doing, right? Are they contracting? Are they relaxed? Are they super tight? Do they feel like rocks when you touch them? Is that why you're having pain? Are you having pain because the muscles in your pelvic floor are so tight that they don't know how to relax, that if you're being penetrated, you're hitting a hard wall, right? And then we're going to talk about things to do to make those things better. Again, like in other physical therapies, I'm going to give you stretches. I'm going to give you meditation exercises. I give every patient a meditation exercise very first visit, regardless of why you're coming to me. And we're going to do stretches and different exercises to have better awareness of what's going on with your pelvic floor and how to treat it. We'll talk about sex. We'll talk about positions. We'll talk about toys, devices, strategies, all sorts of different things that we've kind of touched on already. We will talk about in detail. And then when you come back, we'll talk about how did that go? What can we change and make tweaks? And it's 100% tailored to you as the individual. The MS disease is just a little asterisk, right? When you're with me, I'm treating you. I'm not treating your disease. We're talking about what your problems or your impairments are. And the MS component might just tailor how we do things because of how your brain and your muscles are working together a little bit differently.
Thank you. That was really thorough. I really appreciate that. That gave me a better understanding. Because again, I'm a fangirl for a pelvic floor physical therapist.
I should say, if you are a penis owner and you are a person with a penis, we do that internal exam rectally because that's how we can access the pelvic floor. I guess the most similar would be to like a prostate exam, but not quite as aggressive. And if you're having bowel dysfunction, we do a rectal exam as well.
Thank you. Okay. I am loving hearing these different perspectives, and I think it's really important to know that it's good to have a treatment team. I love working with physicians and pelvic floor physical therapists. And when we have the ability to communicate and work to build a treatment plan with giving all three of our perspectives, it can be really, really beneficial. So add to your team if ever possible, and sign the releases so that we can all talk to each other, so we can share our treatment plans and figure out the best way forward for you, because everyone's going to have different priorities. And if we're communicating about what those priorities are and those goals are, we can make sure that you're going to be happy with how the plan is put into place. Okay, so along that lines, I want to hear how each of us would address concerns with bladder and bowel function. So, Dr. Cody, if someone comes in and they're really, really upset about how their bladder and bowel function is impacting their ability to experience sexual intimacy, how are you going to address that?
It depends a little bit on in what way. So we spend a ton of time managing bladder and bowel in general. Bowel, most patients will have some degree of constipation. Fecal incontinence, overflow incontinence happens as well, but the majority is constipation. And most important is just a really good bowel regimen. And you really want to aim for a nice, smooth appearing, nice log bowel movement a few times a week is really what I would like to see. If it's pebbled, if it's balls, it's too dry, it's been sitting in the intestines too long. So I always ask people what it looks like, and they're like, I don't look. And I'm like, I do. Look at all of them.
Do you have the diagram that you pull out?
The Bristol
scale?
No, but I tell people it exists, and they're like, what? Yes.
I would also add a really skinny stool that looks like a pencil is also not ideal. So, or like ribbon poop, we don't like that either.
Nice, smooth, soft serve log. So we spend a lot of time working on bowel regimens. I also have some great contacts in the spinal cord injury space who help when I really need assistance with more complicated regimens that I can't figure out. But really the key is consistency with using them, and really retraining. If someone has, reflexes, sometimes we'll talk about, digital stimulation or, foods to really help with keeping the gut healthy. And I love a good probiotic and prebiotic, and bladder stimulators I actually like quite a bit too, because that can cut down on fecal incontinence if that's a big issue for patients. So, based on the bladder issues, sometimes we'll go the route of stimulators. With bladder, you can have issues with holding of urine. You can have trouble with voiding, where you're not always initiating the stream well and you're holding onto the urine. You can have issues with overactive bladder, where the second your brain thinks about it, it's ready to go, whether or not there's an amount worthy of the urgency. And people can have both. You can have a mixed picture where it's both slow to release the gates to let the urine out, but also urgent to do so. So it can be a little complicated when it's that mixed picture. And bladder medicines can be great at managing those symptoms. Like, bladder is actually not a harder symptom to manage. But from that list I showed, that's one of those medications that can affect libido. Bladder medicines often cause dryness as well. So I also often like bladder Botox quite a bit, and recommend that often. You can also do things like posterior tibial nerve stimulation, which is a nerve stimulator behind the ankle that can talk to the pelvic nerves and help bladder function. And if you've got a lot of money to burn, and you're willing to burn it, there's even fancy chairs you can sit on that do shock things to your pelvis that affect bladder function. She shakes her head no. I'm not a urologist.
Don't spend your money on it.
Yeah. It's like $3,000. It shows a lady reading a magazine fully clothed on a chair. My friend bought one for his clinic. He tried to charge me, so I said no. I said if it was free, I would do it though. If he's watching this, sorry. But really, it's tailored to the patient. But ultimately, my preference is to get away from daily medications when I can, and use Botox or the PTNS or really bladder stimulators too, because patients end up taking so many medications. And so if I can give them a break from that, I also like that if they're a good candidate.
Great. Thank you. Allison, how about you?
That's what I do all day. So we talk about all of it all day long, right? So again, if we're talking about constipation, if you're full of poop, you might just not feel good, right? You don't want to be intimate. You feel gross. You don't want something else going inside of you when you already feel really full. So how can we get you pooping? What can we do to help with that, right? Again, that might not be the reason why you come into the clinic. You might come in because you're having pain with intercourse, and we might realize that pain is really because you're super constipated. Constipation is the root of all pelvic floor evils. I promise you, more people are, you can poop every single day and be constipated, okay? So constipation, correcting constipation is huge. From a bladder perspective too, again, if you're, especially in women, the urethra lives in like right at the top of the vagina. If a penis is being inserted, it is rubbing, there's friction on the urethra. If you feel like you have a hard time controlling your urine, that sensation at your urethra can make you nervous. It could make you leak. It can cause a whole slew of things, especially if you have a history of leakage, right? So overcoming some of that awareness of what's going on with your bladder, how to control your bladder, all of those things. Why are we having pain? How can we correct our pain? What position are we using? We talk about all those things. So bladder and bowel function and sexual function are kind of synonymous if there's a problem. There doesn't have to be a problem. You can have ones without the other. You can have perfect sexual desire and constipation, bladder problems. You can have bladder problems with sexual desire or sexual desire without those problems. So, or intimacy problems without bladder and bowel function. So don't think that like it's this terrible road down because you have one of those things. Now you're going to have all of these things. They don't have to all go together. They can be separate entities. They just commonly kind of cascade together.
Great, thank you. Okay, so you highlighted on something really important there, Allison, I think, and that's addressing pain. Okay, it is not normal to have pain with sex, any type of sex, unless you want to. Okay, so undesired, and I know that sounds kind of funny, but undesired sexual pain is not normal, and it is something I want all of you to address with a medical provider. Go to a medical provider first before you come to a sex therapist if you're having sex with pain, because that really needs to be explored, and the origins of that need to be determined before we do any therapeutic approach. As a matter of fact, that's the case for all sex therapy. We want to make sure that you are addressing any physical causes of sexual dysfunction before we realize, okay, this is psychological and we need to process it with various forms of sex therapy. And it's like erectile dysfunction. If I see, a gentleman or a person with a penis who has erectile dysfunction, I absolutely make sure they see their provider before we even have a second session, because there's a really good chance there's something could be going wrong with their heart. So now when it comes to bladder and bowel, from my perspective, the two concerns that get brought up are pain or shame. Okay, so if it's pain, I first off make sure that you've addressed that with your medical provider, and then I help you understand you should not push through pain. If you try and push through pain, it is only going to make things worse, both physically and psychologically. A lot of people think, oh, if I can just tolerate this for just a couple more minutes, my partner's going to be happy, we can get through this experience, and it'll be fine next time. That's not what's going to happen. You're going to cause harm to yourself, and then you're not really being honest with your partner, which is really, really difficult in a healthy sexual relationship, because communication is critical. Honesty, vulnerability is really necessary to have a good sex life. So please, please, please do not push through pain. Okay, so find a different sex act. Sex is any touch that's given with erotic intent. Penile vaginal intercourse is only one option on an endless buffet of sexual activities that you have to pick from. So if it is leakage, whether it is urine leakage or fecal leakage, I first validate that's really distressing. And that's a really shameful thing to experience, because in our society, we shame normal bodily functions. And that's just ludicrous. Everybody pees, everybody poops, everybody makes different fluids. And we need to normalize that. Sex in and of itself is very messy. Right? It is, again, not like what we see in TV and movies where people have experiences and they just walk away. There's going to be cleanup involved, especially if you're doing what I recommend everyone does, which is use a good lubricant. Uber Lube, that's my favorite. So recognize, okay, this is normal to have, some type of fluid coming out of my body. And so, if it's urine, recognize that urine is almost sterile. Is that correct, Dr. Cody? Mostly. Okay, so that's what a urologist told me, so I've been running with that. But so get towels, get potty pads, get anything that you want to lay down to help protect your furniture, your floor, and recognize this is okay to have it be part of the experience. You acknowledge that it's there, and then you keep moving forward. Kind of like when you're meditating. If a thought pops into your head, you acknowledge that it's there, and then you move forward. Okay? And you focus on being mindful of the contact with your partner or with yourself and the sensations that feel good. If you feel more comfortable and it is safe for you, you can move to a shower and have sexual activity there. You and your partner can shower before sexual activity, after sexual activity, make it part of the erotic experience, and just talk to your partner. Communicate about how you're feeling, whether that is anxious, worried. You might be anxious that they're judging you or thinking negatively about you, and they're like, oh my gosh, we get to have sex. This is awesome. And they haven't even given 2 thoughts to the fact that you might be leaking urine. So talk about it. Do not internalize that shame and make accommodations. Everyone's going to at some point in their lives. Everyone's going to have to make adjustments related to sex because the body does what it wants to do, and it might be different every time. So, okay, how much time do we have? What time are we allowed to go till? We have 10 minutes. Okay, so what I want to do first before we do questions from the audience is I want to know, what is one piece of information from your specialty that you want everyone to know?
No is a complete sentence. Yeah.
My favorite quote or statement is every person has a pelvis, and every pelvis has a pelvic floor. So pelvic floor problems are not elderly people problems. They are not female problems. They are not pregnancy postpartum problems. They are problems that can happen for every person everywhere. And again, there's no shame.
Unless you are experiencing unwanted pain or you are in a coercive or abusive dynamic or relationship, your sexual experiences are normal. If you have fantasies that you're like, where the hell did that come from? Congratulations, you're normal. There's a ridiculous thing called Rule 34 on the internet, and I love when I get to bring this into presentations. But if you can think of it, there's a porn of it online somewhere. And in my experiences as a sex therapist, that is absolutely true. So again, unless you're experiencing unwanted pain or are in an abusive or coercive relationship, you're completely normal. All right, questions from the audience.
Hi. Do men Kegel? Can they Kegel?
Yep.
Shut up.
Absolutely. Can you stop or try to stop your flow of urine? Please don't do that. Don't sit on the toilet and try and stop pee. It's not good. You shouldn't be able to do that. But that sensation of trying to stop your flow of urine or hold in a fart is a Kegel. In the pelvic floor world, we say, like, lift your sword, fly your flag. For men, that's your Kegel. The question was, how can we all be reached?
So I'm at Memorial Healthcare in Owasso. So for that, you just call and make an appointment. April knows how to find me.
I work for the University of Michigan. I am at the Canton Health Center. To see a pelvic floor physical therapist in the state of Michigan, you need a referral from your provider for it to be covered under insurance. That can be any provider. Your neurologist can write your referral. I love when I get referrals from neurologists because that means that you're talking about it with your neurologist. So any person, anywhere, you just need a referral. Note that U of M has 5 locations with pelvic floor PT, and our wait list is stupid, for lack of better words. So be patient. There's at least like a 2 to 3 month wait at all of our locations.
Okay, to reach me, so I'm at U of M as well. I'm going to tell you, I am not accepting patients, and the Center for Sexual Health is not accepting patients. We haven't been for about a year because our wait list is still over a year. It was 2 years, but that just shows you how many people need support with their sexual health. And there's only about 6 of us that do outpatient sex therapy. If you need a sex therapist, on the resource list, there are instructions on how to find a sex therapist. But if you have a question, I'm a sex nerd and I am happy to answer intellectual questions. And that you can reach me at my email, which I don't know if there's an easy way for me to get that out to you, but I can just tell you. It's AMSIE at med, MED, umich.edu. Is it in the resource list? I don't remember if I put it in there. Okay.
Mindy has our emails.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, I forgot to say one thing that I think is really, really important, and then we're going to get to these questions. The goals of good sex are not orgasm, they're not erection, they're not lubrication. The goals of good sex are connection, intimacy, and satisfaction. And good enough sex is good enough. So don't try to have like Olympic level sex and be disappointed when it doesn't get to that place, because you got to be realistic. Go into it with realistic expectations of, I'm going to have such a fun time connecting with my partner and getting to feel pleasure in my body. So I'm sorry, I forgot that and really wanted to say it. So Allison, this next question is for you and Dr. Cody, you as well. What can I do about constipation?
My fast and ready tip is fiber. Increase your fiber intake. If you enjoy oatmeal, make oatmeal and put ground flaxseed in it. Fiber, water intake, and movement are going to help with your GI motility. The gut likes movement. And so if you're sedentary a lot, movement. Go to yoga. Go do the things, right? You can do belly massage. If you look up the I Love You constipation massage, that will really help with GI motility and getting things moving. Squatty potties can help with positioning. Really, relaxation is huge. So if you're on the toilet and you're stressed about being able to poop, you're not going to poop. Sit there, breathe, relax, and just kind of try and let go. It's a weird cue, but my favorite cue, if you're having a hard time evacuating your stool, if we strain, we're closing the door. Okay, so we all know straining is bad, but we don't know why straining is bad. Straining causes the pelvic floor muscles to contract and it shuts the door. Instead, you want to relax. And the cue that's weird, but it works, is think about pooping out your belly button. So if you do that, your belly button goes down and out and your pelvic floor will relax and your stool will go down and out. So when in doubt, poop out your belly button.
That's amazing. I have never heard that. That is awesome. Dr. Cody, anything to add to that?
I'm going to think about that next time. Just that sometimes patients will rely or reach for laxatives, and overuse of laxatives can lead to a dependence and reliance on laxatives. And so as easy of a fix as that may seem, it can actually get you sort of stuck on them. And so I think you really want to be careful if you find yourself reaching for laxatives. That's really a sign that you want to reach out to your healthcare team to get a real plan in place, because the laxative route can get you in trouble kind of quick.
Okay. What should I do if I get leg cramps with orgasm? Dr. Cody, any thoughts?
So I will say that orgasm can actually help spasticity and can actually decrease it. So what often triggers spasticity, though, is the way a muscle is moved and the speed at which a muscle is moved. So if there's a direction that you know when you're moved a certain way tends to trigger a cramp. One, I think, is just education going in of like,
moving me a certain way tends to elicit it. I think being mindful to be in a position where that's less likely to be triggered may be a good idea. So, perhaps you're on your side, or perhaps you're in a position where you're less likely to aggravate that muscle. But if it does occur, typically stretching, warm heat are going to be, our first options. If you have a vibrating massager, you can put that on to try to help work out that cramp as well. Sometimes topical, so like a blue emu oil, or if you have a topical CBD product, sometimes patients will try that on a cramp as well. And then lastly, if you have like rescue medicines, your doctor might have given you like low doses needed, rescue medicines for breakthrough spasms could be another option.
A note on orgasms. If you are having difficulty experiencing an orgasm because you're trying and trying, remember that having an orgasm is kind of like falling asleep. The harder you try to do it, the more difficult and frustrating it's going to be. So make your goal, again, pleasure and satisfaction. Just like when people are struggling to fall asleep, I recommend make your goal relaxation, right? Rest your body, allow your body to have the experience. Don't try to force the experience. Okay, one more question that I have here. I've heard you should urinate before and after intercourse to avoid UTI. Is this true? Dr. Cody, I'm going to go to you.
Totally. Please pee after you have sex or after you do things. Please pee. Please clear out that urethra. Because, anything rubbing around there, even if it's by yourself, like after you have masturbated, women's urethras are really short. So bacteria does not have a far distance to travel to get into the urinary bladder, and urine is like the perfect broth for bacteria to like grow and repopulate. So men are luckier; their urethra is a lot longer for things to have to travel, but a woman's urethra is super short. So if you have been reaching around and moving fluids around down there, please urinate after.
Okay. Did somebody have their arm raised in the back there? I see maybe a few. It is 8:01. I am always happy to keep talking, very much like you, Dr. Cody. I will talk and talk about sexual health all day long. I was talking about it to my son's school librarian, and now I'm on the committee that designs sex ed at their school. So, yeah, that was a win. Okay. I also have a question up here. So do we have someone ready?
I have both neurogenic bladder and bowel. Neither one works. Pelvic floor therapy sounds great, but I wonder why you think my neurologist, urologist, and gastroenterologist have never told me about that option.
Because they don't know we exist. I'm completely honest, and they don't think that we can help you. But we can give you strategies. I can't change your neurogenic bladder and bowel, but I can give you strategies. They frankly don't know we exist. There is a huge boom in pelvic floor physical therapists, but it's still like probably less than 1% of physical therapists. I don't know. That was a completely made up number. Don't quote me on that. But it's still a really, really small market, right? So in my brain, there's tons of pelvic floor physical therapists because I associate myself with them. But in reality, there's just not a lot. And the same way that doctors don't know to ask or talk about sexual health or bladder bowel stuff, they don't know that we exist, and they don't think that we can help them. They just aren't educated. Ask. Usually they're totally okay with PT because it's a low risk potential reward, right?
I will say for every patient I've ever sent, all have had a good experience. None has ever come back and said, "What were you thinking?" I can't say that about other types of therapies that I have ordered before, but universally, pelvic floor therapy has had a good feedback.
wizards. They're amazing. Ask your doctor. Seriously. Okay. So we have a couple more questions. I have a feeling this is going to kind of keep going. One is a question about sexual dysfunction, sexual dysfunction symptoms, whether it's tertiary or psychological. I'm going to maybe reference your slides for that question because there's a couple other ones. And this next one's kind of a big question of how do you bridge the gap between caregiver and lover? And that's really challenging. And it's something that impacts so many relationships where chronic illness is involved. And the short answer, because this is something you could spend hours in sex therapy talking about, is change the setting. Okay, so we get into patterns, we get into routines where, one person is the carer, the other person is the person receiving care. Really work on changing the framework of your care partners. You're in it together, but make it novel. I'm a very big fan of scheduled sexual activity, right? So you can anticipate, so you can plan, you can prepare. Maybe if one room in your house is where you do a lot of medical intervention, where you take your medication, maybe we don't have sex in that room. Maybe we shift into a different room where we can feel a different part of ourselves, where we can stop being a person who has MS and get to being a really fierce sexual creature and have MS not be in the bedroom during that experience. Okay, so novelty, changing things up, and talking about it, talking about the struggle, bringing it out into the open and say this is hard because I'm exhausted doing this. I'm exhausted providing care. I'm exhausted receiving care. But maybe for tonight, we put that in the back burner and we talk about our past wonderful sexual experiences that we've had together. Or we talk about our connection. We focus on that intimacy. And that intimacy, building that, relying on that will really help bridge that gap. Okay.
Okay, just a couple more quick ones here.
Yeah, this really isn't even a question. It's more of a testament to the pelvic floor activity. I did that a couple of years ago, and it worked immediately. Part of it is just reconnecting in my opinion anyway, your brain for the sensation that you do have left down there. And it improved things 10 or 20%. It didn't get me from 0 to 100, but I just wanted the audience to know that it is a real thing. I think it's under-discussed, but it's effective.
Can pelvic floor therapy help with when the sciatic sets a lot of things off because it's all interconnected?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we treat the whole body, right? So if you're having sciatic pain, back pain, imbalance, whatever, it can definitely impact your pelvic floor and, bladder bowel control. So yes. If we're waiting for another question, I have another quick little tip. So if you leak urine, and specifically if you leak urine with changing of position or picking something up or bending, squatting, moving, my little strategy that you all can take home today is blow before you go. So it's a strategy by a therapist named Julie Wiebe, who's amazing. But essentially you're going to actively blow out like you're blowing out birthday candles as you change position. So if I'm going from sitting to standing and I know that I tend to leak urine when I stand up, I'm going to blow out as I stand. So I'm going to take my breath in and then and as I blow out, that's going to kick on your pelvic floor and help kind of pull that up against the gravity pulling down. Okay, so you all can take that home, my little free therapy session for you. If you leak urine with position change or picking up a toddler or a child or grocery bags or something like that, if you were to leak urine doing that, blow out as you do the hard part of that movement and it'll kick on your pelvic floor.
There is one last question that we didn't get to. So, Dr. Cody, this is for you. Okay. Can you explain the tertiary group for sexual dysfunction and what were the changes from the psychosocial that you mentioned?
So, the tertiary was really getting into sort of the depression, anxiety, body image, kind of a lot that you really covered. So I'll be honest, I'm more primary and secondary. Tertiary is going to be this one over here, which is why they have the 2-year wait list.
Okay, yeah. So whenever you have a major change to your body, a major change to your identity, right? It's gonna cause a bit of a crisis of self, of who am I with this diagnosis? Who was I prior to this diagnosis? And how am I getting to know my body again? How am I feeling safe in my body again? As we go through life, like our society is so stupid. I really hate like all this emphasis on a particular way of looking. We say, if you do not look like this image that is represented in our culture as ideal, then there's something wrong with you. Well, reality is none of us look like that, and we're not going to look like that, and our bodies are going to change. And we can still be sexy and desirable and happy and joyful and ability to experience and stimulate immense sexual pleasure just as we are. But that sense of self becomes threatened when our conceptualization of reality has been threatened by a diagnosis, whether it's for ourselves or for a partner or a loved one. So get mental health support. There are tons of resources. Please don't suffer in silence. If you're experiencing overwhelming sadness, shame is so toxic because shame hides in the shadows. I think y'all are in the age group where you can appreciate Gremlins, a Gremlin movie reference from the 80s. So Gremlins were these terrible little creatures that like came out in the dark, and they caused havoc and mayhem. But when you shined a light on them, or when daytime came out, they died. Or they perished or something like that. You understand where I'm going with this. If we bring up those dark, icky feelings, those feelings of shame that hold us back into the light and talk with people about them, then they lose their power and control over us. So talk to people you trust and lean into the new normal. Okay. Thank you all so much. Okay.
Okay, Mindy and I said that you guys need to do a podcast together.
This would be such a great podcast. We have to talk to you after. You girls work really well together. All right. So thank you to our amazing speakers, our panel. This was beyond our wildest dreams when we started putting this together, right, committee? Yeah, they're smiling. They are happy. Yes, they are. Good night, everyone. Thank you for showing up for yourself and each other. On behalf of the whole entire Yoga Moves MS team and community, we are deeply grateful for your presence. Namaste and sweet dreams.